The unfolding narrative extends an invitation to its audience to embark upon a serene and unhurried voyage through the annals of ancient Greek mythology and the secluded chronicles of legendary history. It encourages them to soften their surroundings, to find comfort beneath a covering, and to permit the day's clamor to recede into oblivion, preparing for a contemplative exploration. At the extreme western periphery of the terrestrial sphere, precisely where the grand celestial orb concludes its daily traverse, a singular arboreal wonder flourishes. One might readily envision this majestic specimen standing in solitary splendor upon an elevated rise, its boughs laden with golden produce that shimmers with the intensity of captured solar radiance. Yet, this magnificent tree does not exist in isolation. Encircling its venerable trunk, with the immobility and patience of ancient rock, reposes Ladon, a formidable dragon whose 100 vigilant eyes remain perpetually open, and whose very respiration has chronicled the inexorable march of millennia. It is crucial to understand that Ladon does not embody the ferocious, avaricious archetype of dragons found in later folklore. Instead, he represents a more subdued, more primordial, and fundamentally eternal entity. His formidable scales gleam with a muted bronze luminescence, their surface worn smooth and polished by the ceaseless caress of countless years of wind and atmospheric conditions. Each of his 100 ocular orbs operates independently, creating a soft, mesmerizing rhythm, akin to constellations gradually manifesting and then receding in a languid celestial ballet across the nocturnal canvas. Some of these eyes meticulously survey the distant horizon. Others fixate upon the radiant golden fruit above, while still more appear to gaze inward, as if absorbed in meditations too profound for human comprehension. The sacred tree under his guardianship is the treasured possession of Hera, the august queen of the Olympian gods, and its fabled golden apples are reputed to bestow everlasting life upon those who partake of them. However, one would not observe Ladon restlessly pacing his domain or unleashing fiery breath upon potential intruders. Rather, he has assimilated into a profound and ancient rhythm, one as fundamental as the earth itself. His immense form gently rises and falls with each deliberate breath, emitting a sound reminiscent of distant oceanic waves murmuring against a shore. When the breeze stirs through the verdant foliage above him, he occasionally elevates his massive head ever so slightly, as though attuned to the softest whisper of a cherished, ancient confidant. One might ponder the nature of a dragon's thoughts during the immeasurable, hushed expanse of eternity. Perhaps he recalls the very day Hera first led him to this sacred locale, how she addressed him not merely as a subordinate, but as a revered custodian of something inestimably precious. The golden apples, in essence, transcended mere fruit. They embodied hope itself, representing the profound assurance that certain elements within this ephemeral world possess the capacity for perpetual existence. And Ladon, with his ancient wisdom, comprehended that his designated function was not to exhibit ferocity or inspire terror, but rather to maintain an unwavering presence, to be constant and utterly steadfast. The verdant expanse encompassing the tree is meticulously tended by the Hesperides, the enchanting evening nymphs who serenade as they perform their duties. Their ethereal voices intertwine seamlessly with the resonant sound of Ladon's breathing, collectively weaving a timeless lullaby that has reverberated throughout this sacred space since the dawn of time. They navigate the garden with the grace of dancers, assiduously watering the roots, carefully pruning the branches, and gathering any fallen leaves. Occasionally, they pause in their labors to gently caress Ladon's warm, textured scales, prompting a contented rumble from the magnificent creature, a sound akin to distant thunder echoing on a balmy summer evening. A natural query might arise regarding Ladon's potential loneliness during his perpetual vigil. However, the very concept of loneliness necessitates a subjective perception of time's passage. For Ladon, time operates on a fundamentally different cadence. Each day seamlessly merges into the next, like water seeking its natural level. The sun ascends, casting elongated golden shafts of light through the apple branches. It climbs to its zenith, suffusing his bronze scales with warmth until they become almost too hot to the touch. Subsequently, it descends, painting the vast sky in resplendent hues of rose and amber that perfectly complement the radiant fruit he guards. And throughout this eternal cycle, Ladon maintains his watchful gaze with patient eyes, his unwavering presence as reliable and predictable as the changing seasons themselves. The golden apples themselves appear to emanate a subtle, intrinsic luminescence, particularly during the ethereal hours preceding dawn. Should one be privileged to observe them at close proximity, it would become apparent that their form is not perfectly spherical like common fruit. Instead, they exhibit a slight elongation, their immaculate skin devoid of any blemishes, entirely free from the telltale marks of age or decay. When stirred by the gentle caress of the wind, they produce a soft, melodic chime as they brush against one another, a sound reminiscent of distant bells. Ladon has been privy to this exquisite music for such an immense duration that it has become intrinsically woven into the very fabric of his being, a part of his heartbeat, an element of his breathing, and even a component of his profound dreams. Indeed, even dragons are capable of dreaming. In the depths of his slumber, Ladon occasionally experiences prophetic visions of heroes who will eventually arrive, drawn by the irresistible allure of the apples. These are not the violent marauders depicted in some narratives, but rather individuals propelled by profound affection, by desperate necessity, or by the inherent human yearning to safeguard that which holds the utmost significance. He perceives their visages long before their physical arrival, recognizing their unique footsteps upon the ancient path that leads to his hallowed garden. And despite his sacred duty to protect the apples, he experiences a sentiment akin to compassion for these ardent seekers, understanding their deep-seated hunger for permanence in a world where all else inevitably fades. The most renowned of these extraordinary visitors was Heracles, the legendary hero whose prodigious physical strength was arguably surpassed only by the profound turmoil within his own heart. When Heracles finally reached the sacred garden, his form covered in the dust of his arduous and protracted journey, Ladon exhibited no surprise. The ancient dragon had, in fact, been dreaming of this precise moment for countless years. The hero approached with deliberate slowness, devoid of the customary swagger one might anticipate, but rather with the meticulous reverence of an individual who deeply comprehends the sanctity of such a place. Heracles did not engage Ladon in combat, contrary to certain popular accounts. Instead, he chose to sit beneath the sheltering boughs of the tree for 3 days and 3 nights, conversing quietly with the venerable dragon about his arduous labors, his profound regrets, and his earnest hope that by successfully completing these seemingly impossible tasks, he might at last attain some measure of inner peace. Ladon listened intently with his 100 eyes, and within those myriad orbs, Heracles perceived not the unthinking voracity of a mere beast, but rather the profound weariness of an immortal soul burdened by an eternal charge. On the third night, as the moon ascended to its highest point in the celestial sphere, Ladon performed an act unprecedented in his long existence. He simultaneously closed all 100 of his eyes and succumbed to a deep, complete slumber, thereby permitting Heracles to acquire the apples he so desperately required. This was neither a capitulation nor a deception. It was, instead, a profound act of recognition, one guardian acknowledging the inherent honor of another, one eternal responsibility paying homage to a parallel, enduring duty. As Heracles departed, he gently placed his hand upon Ladon's massive head, a gesture of profound gratitude that the dragon cherishes and carries with him to this very day. Nevertheless, that extraordinary event transpired aeons ago. Heracles successfully completed his formidable labors and ultimately found his desired peace. The resplendent golden apples were duly returned to their sacred tree, and Ladon, with unwavering fidelity, resumed his eternal watch. The world beyond the confines of the garden underwent transformations both subtle and dramatic. Empires ascended to power and subsequently crumbled into ruin. New deities garnered fervent worshippers, while ancient ones gradually receded into faint whispers of legend, and mortals devised innovative methodologies to quantify time, distance, and intrinsic value. None of these external shifts, however, impinged upon the tranquil garden where Ladon meticulously maintained his vigil. Within this hallowed sanctuary, the rhythm of existence remained immutable. The gentle light of dawn filtering through golden leaves, the melodious singing of the Hesperides as they tended their perpetual garden, the soft whisper of the wind weaving through immortal branches, and always the steady, rhythmic breathing of the ancient dragon who watched over it all, his 100 eyes faithfully reflecting the ever-changing light. His very presence a profound testament that certain elements endure not through brute force or cunning intellect, but through the simple, unwavering choice to remain faithful to that which holds the deepest significance. Should one be granted the extraordinary opportunity to visit Ladon today, he would be found precisely as he has always been, majestically coiled around the base of the golden tree, his scales radiating warmth from the sun's embrace, his eyes observing the world with profound and patient wisdom. He might gently lift his great head slightly upon one's approach, not as a sign of threat, but rather in a gesture of welcome, recognizing in the visitor another soul, perhaps one also seeking something enduring within an inherently transient world. And if one were to remain exceptionally quiet, utterly still, it might be possible to discern within his ancient breathing the faint echo of all the stories yet untold, the collective resonance of all the quiet guardians who steadfastly watch over the precious things humanity cannot bear to lose. What other patient watchers, one might ponder, could be discovered within the gentle corners of ancient Greece? What other souls found profound meaning not in grand, perilous adventures, but rather in the steady, unassuming rhythms of daily devotion? Long before legendary heroes such as Heracles traversed the earth, before magnificent temples rose majestically on sun-drenched hilltops, and before marble columns gleamed under the Mediterranean sun, the earliest inhabitants of Greece unearthed a secret that would irrevocably alter the course of human civilization. They learned to coax the earth into yielding its bounteous treasures, not through aggressive mining or arduous hunting, but through a patient and symbiotic partnership between human hands and dormant seeds. This, then, is the compelling narrative of those often forgotten pioneers, the inaugural farmers who skillfully transmuted wild grasses into abundant golden wheat, who meticulously transformed scattered nomadic tribes into stably settled communities, and who, in doing so, taught humanity the fundamental virtue of trusting in tomorrow's promised harvest. One is invited to vividly imagine the primordial landscape of ancient Greece as it existed approximately 8,000 years ago. Undulating hills carpeted in wild herbs that infused the air with their fragrant essence with every passing breeze. Majestic oak groves where acorns descended as thick as rain each autumn. And expansive meadows dotted with wild barley and wheat, flourishing wherever the wind had dispersed the seeds of their ancestral plants. The people who inhabited this land during that distant era were primarily nomadic, meticulously tracking game animals through the changing seasons, diligently gathering wild berries and nuts, and perpetually existing at the mercy of nature's often unpredictable and capricious moods. However, in a verdant valley situated not far from the site that would one day burgeon into the illustrious city of Athens, a woman whose name has tragically been lost to the annals of history, made a pivotal observation that fundamentally reshaped everything. She noticed, with keen insight, that wherever their tribe had established temporary camps and subsequently left behind the remnants of their meals, scattered grains, fruit seeds, and various vegetable scraps, new and vigorous plants would invariably sprout the following season. This phenomenon was not the result of magic, though it must have initially appeared miraculous. Instead, it represented the Earth's profound and responsive interaction with human partnership, marking the genesis of agriculture's ancient and ongoing conversation between deliberate intention and hopeful anticipation. Her name, hypothetically, might have been Melissa, a term meaning bee in ancient Greek, for she exhibited a similar innate inclination towards the industrious tasks of gathering and meticulous storage, much like her insect namesake. Each morning, she would diligently traverse the areas where her people had encamped in preceding years, carefully scrutinizing the volunteer plants that had spontaneously emerged there. Through this dedicated observation, she learned to discern the robust stalks that yielded the most abundant grain, the resilient vines that bore the sweetest and most succulent fruit, and the sturdy roots that effectively stored the greatest amount of nourishment to sustain the community through the harsh, lean months of winter. Melissa's groundbreaking insight emerged not from a sudden, spectacular epiphany or an instantaneous flash of genius, nor was it the product of some celestial disclosure. Rather, her profound understanding materialized incrementally, forged through countless meticulous observations, unassuming trials, and an unwavering, patient dedication. She consciously sowed seeds in specific locations, anticipating her eventual return. With careful deliberation, she prepared modest plots of land, diligently eradicating intrusive weeds and obstructive stones to ensure her selected flora possessed ample space for vigorous development. Over time, she cultivated an acute sensitivity, learning to decipher the nuanced indicators that signaled optimal soil conditions for cultivation. The precise moment young sprouts required hydration, and when cereals had reached their prime for harvesting. Her fellow tribal members regarded her pioneering endeavors with a blend of intrigued wonder and profound doubt. They pondered the rationale behind dedicating such considerable effort to nurturing vegetation in a fixed location, when nature's bounty already furnished all their necessities. They questioned the wisdom of remaining confined to a solitary valley, when their very concept of liberty entailed trailing the migratory patterns of animal herds across vast territories. Nevertheless, Melissa possessed a vision that remained elusive to them. She had perceived the nascent potential for unprecedented plenty, for an enduring stability, and for settlements capable of expanding far beyond the demographic limits sustained by traditional hunting and foraging practices. Her initial substantial triumph manifested through emmer wheat, an archaic cereal variety indigenous to the entire geographical expanse. Distinct from contemporary wheat, which boasts robust, effortlessly gathered kernels, emmer presented a formidable and unyielding character. Its individual grains adhered tenaciously to their protective glooms, necessitating meticulous preparation to render them palatable. Yet this very tenacity rendered it exceptionally resilient, capable of flourishing even in impoverished soil conditions and amidst unpredictable climatic fluctuations. Melissa diligently deciphered its intrinsic cycles, ascertaining its preference for elevated, well-drained slopes and a precise autumnal sowing period. With each successive harvest, she assiduously preserved the most superior seeds, progressively cultivating more vigorous and prolific cultivars over time. The sheer arduousness of this undertaking surpassed all prior conjectures. Preparing the land involved interminable hours of labor utilizing rudimentary implements, arduous stump extraction, strenuous stone relocation, and the arduous task of fracturing compacted soil. Sowing demanded scrupulous vigilance concerning meteorological phenomena, the precise composition of the earth, and the finely calibrated temporal window that demarcated prolific yield from devastating crop failure. Weeding constituted a perpetual obligation throughout the cultivation period, a painstaking, systematic endeavor focused on safeguarding the desired flora whilst extirpating rival vegetation. Furthermore, the harvest introduced its distinct array of formidable obstacles: manual grain severance, the laborious process of threshing to disjoin kernels from their stems, and winnowing to purify the bounty by discarding husks and extraneous detritus. However, the eventual recompense proved nothing short of remarkable. For the inaugural instance within collective human recollection, Melissa's community possessed an abundant surplus of provisions, quantities far exceeding their immediate consumption needs for a single cycle of seasons. They mastered the sophisticated technique of storing grain within hermetically sealed ceramic containers, thereby safeguarding it from ambient humidity and invasive vermin. Concurrently, they unveiled methods for desiccating, fermenting, or otherwise conserving particular foodstuffs, thereby prolonging their utility significantly beyond the confines of the active growing period. Consequently, winter, historically a period characterized by profound want and pervasive apprehension, transformed into simply another segment of the year, to be weathered with contented sustenance and tranquil dispositions. As reports of these unprecedented achievements proliferated, neighboring tribal societies initiated their own exploratory ventures into agricultural practices. Each distinct collective meticulously tailored the foundational tenets of cultivation to harmonize with their specific ecological context and practical requirements. Along littoral zones, inhabitants cultivated a diverse array of vegetables uniquely adapted to flourish in sandy substrates and saline atmospheric conditions. In rugged, elevated territories, they ingeniously engineered terraced fields, effectively harnessing precipitous gradients and harnessing sporadic precipitation. Furthermore, in proximity to fluvial arteries and flowing waterways, they devised sophisticated irrigation networks, channeling vital moisture to tracts of land previously deemed infertile. The societal transformations that emerged concurrently with the advent of agriculture proved no less monumental than the technological innovations. Once individuals were liberated from the incessant nomadic quest for sustenance, they could dedicate considerable temporal and energetic resources to constructing enduring habitations. Ephemeral shelters gave way to robust houses, which evolved into focal points of familial existence and secure repositories for progressively amassed personal effects. Settlements burgeoned around the most fertile agricultural lands, fostering communities substantial enough to sustain an array of specialized artisans. Skilled potters fabricating essential storage receptacles, ingenious toolmakers forging superior plows and scythes, and adept weavers crafting garments from natural botanical filaments. Youngsters nurtured within these nascent agrarian societies cultivated a fundamentally distinct rapport with temporality and locale compared to their peripatetic forebears. They assimilated the deliberate cyclical cadences inherent in agricultural existence. The serene, quiescent winter periods during which seeds reposed in frigid earth, the vibrant anticipation of vernal sowing, the vigilant observation throughout summer as burgeoning crops progressed towards full ripeness, and the exultant fatigue that characterized the season of harvest. They developed what might aptly be termed an intrinsic agrarian sagacity, encompassing a profound comprehension of meteorological cycles, diverse soil compositions, botanical ailments, and the myriad other variables that ultimately dictate prosperity or adversity in cultivation. Spiritual observances underwent a parallel evolution in tandem with agricultural development. As human populations endeavored to both comprehend and exert influence over the enigmatic powers that dictated the fate of their crops, they increasingly perceived a divine presence within the seasonal progression. This led to the creation of elaborate rites and ceremonies designed to guarantee auspicious weather, fecund ground, and prolific yields. Demeter, revered as the deity presiding over grain and cultivation, ascended to a preeminent position within the Hellenic pantheon, symbolizing not merely the earth's munificence, but also the hallowed symbiosis between diligent human endeavor and the potent forces of the natural world. The implements employed by these pioneering agriculturists, though unassuming in their design, proved remarkably efficacious. Wooden plows, propelled by the brute strength of oxen, fractured the earth's surface with significantly greater efficacy than manual tools could achieve independently. Sickles fashioned from bronze expedited the harvesting process, rendering it both swifter and more comprehensive. Clay receptacles furnished dependable containment for precious seeds and harvested cereals. Furthermore, stone querns meticulously milled grain into flour, which could then be transformed into bread, a dietary staple characterized by its portability, nutritive value, and extended shelf life. Each of these advancements encapsulated successive generations of diligent experimentation and meticulous refinement, as cultivators progressively engineered superior methodologies for interacting with the land. Yet, arguably the most crucial instrument cultivated by these foundational farmers was the very virtue of patience. In stark contrast to the immediate returns often yielded by hunting, which rewarded individuals possessing both dexterity and serendipity. Agricultural pursuits mandated an unwavering conviction in deferred recompense. Seeds sown in the exuberance of spring might not reach their harvestable state until the autumnal equinox. Fecund fruit trees could remain barren for a span of several years post-planting. Even enhancements to soil quality might demand decades to manifest their complete beneficial impact. This inculcated disposition towards protracted foresight revolutionized not merely the methods by which human beings sustained themselves, but fundamentally reshaped their conceptualization of their intrinsic position within the cosmic order. By the epoch when classical Hellenic civilization attained its zenith, the progeny of these primordial cultivators had established an intricate agrarian framework capable of sustaining millions of inhabitants. They had pioneered sophisticated crop rotation methodologies designed to preserve the Earth's productive capacity, instituted judicious selective breeding initiatives that refined both flora and fauna, and forged expansive commercial conduits that disseminated excess foodstuffs throughout the entirety of the Mediterranean basin. Nevertheless, the bedrock upon which this entire edifice rested remained the painstaking observations and meticulous trials undertaken by pioneers akin to Melissa, individuals who perceived latent promise within untamed vegetation, who were prepared to commit their invaluable temporal and energetic resources to endeavors with indeterminate conclusions, and who held an abiding faith that the terrestrial realm would reciprocate their diligent stewardship with bounteous yields. Even in the contemporary era, characterized by highly mechanized cultivation and advanced scientific botanical genetics, the fundamental symbiotic connection between the agriculturist and the land persists unaltered. An individual must still diligently monitor atmospheric conditions, meticulously cultivate the earth, and render innumerable minor judgments that ultimately dictate the prosperity or demise of the crops. The inheritors of those initial Hellenic farmers perpetuate their ancestral vocation across global farmlands, upholding an uninterrupted legacy of collaboration with the terrestrial sphere that commenced when a woman identified as Melissa first discerned the transformative potential of dispersed seeds yielding plentiful harvests. Beyond the agrarian revolution, what other subtle yet transformative breakthroughs molded the quotidian existence of the ancient Hellenes, which skilled artisans and master craftspeople laid the bedrock of civilization through their unwavering commitment to their vocations. Beneath the majestic silhouette of Accra, Corinth, where the inaugural rays of dawn illuminate the bustling workshops lining the venerable urban thoroughfares, Nicias commences his daily regimen, just as his progenitor did, and his paternal ancestor before him. The potter's wheel revolves rhythmically beneath his deft hands, and pliant, moistened clay ascends, gradually assuming forms destined to transport wine across the azure expanse of the Mediterranean, to contain sanctified olive oil for temple luminaries, and to safeguard precious grain throughout yet another lean winter. However, Nicias, engrossed in his meticulous craft, contemplates neither intricate trade networks nor lucrative commercial ventures. Instead, he attends intently to the very essence of the clay, discerning the precise juncture at which it is prepared to fulfill its inherent purpose. Corinthian ceramic artistry enjoys widespread renown across the ancient globe, lauded not for monumental scale or imposing magnificence, but rather for its impeccable symmetry, its exquisitely intricate painted adornments, and the profound manner in which it appears to encapsulate an intrinsic facet of Hellenic culture. Every individual artifact originates from clay meticulously extracted from particular hillsides encircling the metropolis, a geological endowment seemingly consecrated by eons of Mediterranean rainfall and solar radiance. The master potters possess an encyclopedic familiarity with each distinct deposit. They can articulate precisely which elevated terrain yields clay that vitrifies into a rich, sanguine terracotta hue, and which alluvial depression furnishes the refined, unblemished substance ideally suited for intricate pictorial embellishments. The day's exacting labor commences prior to the emergence of dawn, during the tranquil hours when the atmosphere remains cool and motionless. Nicias, alongside his diligent apprentices, undertakes the crucial preliminary task of preparing the clay, meticulously kneading it with a rhythmic motion akin to working bread dough. This serves to expunge any entrapped air pockets that possess the potential to induce fissures during the subsequent firing stage. This intricate procedure, technically termed wedging, demands both sustained forbearance and considerable physical exertion. The raw material must be manipulated until it achieves an absolutely homogeneous consistency, becoming perfectly amenable to the potter's manipulation, neither excessively pliable nor unduly rigid. A seasoned master ceramist discerns the precise readiness of the clay instinctively, solely by its tactile qualities within his grasp, the nuanced manner in which it yields to applied force, and the faint, developing warmth that emanates as it is assiduously worked. At the potter's wheel, Nicias often slips into a profound, almost spiritual state of concentration. His feet deftly manipulate the pedal, maintaining the rhythmic rotation of the substantial stone disc, while his experienced hands coax the pliable clay upwards, shaping it into an array of venerable forms. These include the elegant amphora, crafted for the storage and transport of wine, the capacious craters, essential for mixing beverages during lively symposiums, the modest cups designated for everyday use, and the ornate ceremonial vessels employed in solemn religious observances. Each of these archetypal shapes has undergone meticulous refinement over countless generations, with their proportions painstakingly adjusted and readjusted until they embody that exquisite harmony between aesthetic appeal and practical utility, a hallmark of quintessential Greek artistry. The art of throwing, when executed by a true master, appears deceptively simple, yet it demands an arduous apprenticeship spanning many years to properly acquire. Applying excessive pressure can cause the vessel's delicate walls to collapse inwards, rendering the piece useless. Conversely, insufficient pressure results in walls that remain excessively thick and cumbersome. The true mastery lies in discerning the clay's intrinsic desires, understanding its preferred movement, and collaborating with its natural properties rather than attempting to force its will. Nicias frequently works with his eyes closed, relying solely on his highly developed tactile perception to guide the yielding clay into its predestined form. Once the fundamental structure is complete, the subsequent stage unveils the true artistic embellishment. While the clay retains a slight dampness, but possesses sufficient firmness to be handled, the decorative painters, specialists in their own distinctive domain, assume control. These are master storytellers, artists who have dedicated decades to perfecting the intricate skill of depicting scenes that narrate compelling stories, profound myths, and ancient legends, alongside vivid portrayals of daily life, intense athletic competitions, and solemn religious ceremonies. They meticulously work with delicate brushes fashioned from fine animal hair, employing a specialized slip, a finely calibrated liquid clay, refined to a consistency that allows it to flow smoothly without running. The painting techniques employed are executed with an unwavering exactitude, rivaling the precision of any other craft. The process commences with an initial delicate tracing of the outline, sketched lightly with a thin brush. Subsequently, the main colors are carefully filled in, typically featuring striking black figures silhouetted against the natural red-orange hue of the fired clay, or in later periods, elegant red figures set against a deep black background. The painters are compelled to work with swift yet unerring precision, as any missteps cannot be easily remedied. Each brush stroke must be confident and decisive, contributing to designs that will be indelibly fired into permanence. The kiln firing, without question, represents the most anxious and critical phase in the entire pottery-making process. All the preceding weeks of painstaking effort, from the meticulous preparation of the clay and the precise shaping of the vessels, to the intricate painting of decorations and the patient waiting for everything to dry properly, culminate in the perilous 3-day and 3-night vigil when the pottery rests within chambers heated by fires that must be maintained at an exactly calibrated thermal environment. Should the temperature become too high, the delicate pieces risk warping or cracking. Conversely, if the heat is insufficient, they will fail to develop the rich, desired colors and the hard, resilient finish that render Corinthian pottery so exceptionally prized. Nicias has cultivated a profound intimacy with the elemental forces of the kiln, learning to interpret the fire's nuances with the same sagacity a farmer applies to reading the weather. The spectral hues of the flames convey vital information about the internal temperature. The distinctive sound of the burning wood provides an auditory narrative, indicating the remaining moisture content within the fuel. The subtle aroma of the smoke reveals whether the combustion is clean or if critical adjustments are required. During these intense firing days, he sleeps only in short, intermittent intervals, checking the kilns every few hours, assiduously adding wood, fine-tuning the airflow, and making the countless small yet crucial corrections that ultimately determine the difference between triumphant success and disheartening failure. The pottery workshop is a sanctum of focused endeavor, its quiet concentration occasionally punctuated by bursts of purposeful activity. During the throwing sessions, all attention converges on the spinning wheels, with only the rhythmic cadence of the turning clay and the soft splash of water, used to keep hands and clay moist, breaking the silence. As painting time commences, the atmosphere becomes even more hushed, infused with a subdued reverence, as the artists concentrate on creating intricate scenes destined to be admired for centuries. However, during the firing phase, the workshop buzzes with a palpable tension and nervous energy, as every individual waits with bated breath to discover whether their collective work has successfully endured the fiery crucible. When the kilns finally cool and the moment arrives for their careful unloading, there invariably arises a complex mixture of eager anticipation mingled with lingering trepidation. Some pieces emerge exactly as hoped, their colors resplendent, their forms flawless, and their decorations crisp and unequivocally clear. Others display the subtle idiosyncrasies that arise from the natural firing processes, Slight chromatic variations, unique patterns within the glaze, or minor imperfections that, in a curious way, imbue each piece with a greater sense of individuality and preciousness. Occasionally, despite all meticulous precautions, there are irretrievable losses, pieces that cracked under thermal assault, decorations that failed to fire properly, or forms that warped beyond any salvageable use. Yet, such failures are an intrinsic component of the learning process in any craft, and pottery, perhaps more than any other discipline, instills patience above all other virtues. Shatrom Nicias, with his sage perspective, has learned to embrace both successes and failures as invaluable teachers, diligently studying each outcome to ascertain precisely what transpired correctly or incorrectly. He constantly seeks to understand how techniques might be refined and how the mysterious alchemy of clay, fire, and human skill might be better mastered. He preserves broken pieces not as distressing reminders of failure, but rather as tangible lessons, examining them closely to comprehend the nuanced ways in which clay behaves under diverse conditions. The completed pottery then departs the workshop, embarking upon its destined journey into the wider world, where its true purpose begins. Wine jars are loaded onto merchant ships, carrying not merely their precious liquid cargo, but also news, gossip, and vital cultural influences to distant ports. Ceremonial vessels take their venerated place in temples, holding sacred offerings to the gods, participating in ancient rituals that profoundly connect communities to their spiritual traditions. Daily use pottery, in its ubiquitous presence, fills homes throughout the Mediterranean, transforming ordinary activities like eating and drinking into more beautiful experiences, fostering a deeper connection to the artistic traditions that fundamentally define Greek civilization. However, for Nicias and his esteemed fellow potters, the most significant audience remains local. The neighbors who arrive to acquire oil lamps for their homes, water jugs for their wells, and cups for their tables. These discerning customers possess an intimate knowledge of pottery, capable of appreciating the subtle distinctions that elevate superior workmanship from merely adequate production. They understand implicitly that a well-crafted pot will serve faithfully for decades, that aesthetically pleasing decorations enhance the pleasure of daily tasks, and that supporting local craftspeople helps to maintain the rich traditions that render their community unique. As evening approaches and the last wheel ceases its spin, Nicias cleans his tools with the same meticulous reverence he applies to shaping the clay. Each implement holds its specific purpose, its proper method of maintenance, and its indispensable role in the intricate process that transmutes humble earth into enduring art. Tomorrow, he will commence anew with fresh clay, confronting new challenges and embracing new opportunities to participate in the ancient, timeless colloquy between human creativity and natural materials. What other artisans, one might ponder, discover profound resonance in this patient metamorphosis of raw materials into objects of both beauty and utility, just as the Corinthian potters meticulously shaped clay into vessels that served as conduits for civilization across the seas. So too did the shipwrights of Athens sculpt wood into the very vessels themselves. Within the sprawling naval yards of Piraeus, where the resonant symphony of hammering echoes from dawn until dusk, Alexandros runs his calloused hands along a piece of seasoned oak, feeling for the subtle grain that will reveal to him the timber's innate character and its optimal application. Some magnificent pieces are destined to become keels, the unyielding backbone of ships that will transport merchants and warriors across the wine-dark sea. Others will be transformed into ribs, providing vessels with their essential form and resilient strength. Still others will be painstakingly carved into the elegant, sweeping curves of prows that cut through waves with the graceful agility of dolphins. The genesis of the shipbuilding process does not commence in the bustling harbors, but rather deep within the sylvan sanctuaries, where trees are selected and felled according to ancestral wisdom passed down through countless generations. Sturdy oak for its unparalleled strength, nimble pine for its lightness, and fragrant cedar for its inherent resistance to rot and insidious insects. Each specific type of wood possesses its proper application, its ideal seasoning duration, and its particular challenges and advantages. Alexandros learned early in his rigorous apprenticeship that understanding wood is akin to understanding people. Each piece exhibits its own distinct temperament, its own idiosyncratic response to stress, and its own preferences for how it desires to be worked. Seasoning timber is arguably the foremost crucible of patience within the shipbuilding endeavor. Freshly cut wood contains a voluminous moisture content, rendering it unsuitable for immediate use. It must be judiciously arranged in stacks with ample spaces for air circulation, protected from torrential rain but not entirely shielded from atmospheric exposure, and left to dry for a protracted maturation period of months or even years. Green wood, if improperly seasoned, might warp or crack uncontrollably as it dries, thereby ruining months of meticulous preparatory work. However, properly seasoned timber achieves an unwavering structural integrity, becoming predictable and perfectly prepared to assume its vital place in constructions that must withstand the constant, relentless assault of wind and waves. The design of ships represents an exacting equilibrium between competing demands, a formidable engineering conundrum that would challenge even the most astute modern engineer. They must possess unyielding resilience to survive ferocious storms, yet simultaneously be light enough to move with aerodynamic grace through the water. They must offer voluminous capacity to carry substantial cargo, yet remain sufficiently compact to be maneuvered with nimble agility in tight harbors. They must be impervious to ingress, watertight enough to repel the sea, yet possess pliant adaptability to bend with the powerful waves without fracturing. Each design decision inevitably impacts all the others, creating complex, interdependent variables that shipwrights resolve through a potent combination of vast experience, intuitive sagacity, and rigorous empirical observation of what demonstrably works. Alexandros is a dedicated artisan specializing in merchant vessels, the unassuming yet indispensable stalwarts of Mediterranean trade that transport everything from essential grain to fine wine, from valuable pottery to rich olive oil between distant ports. These ships, while lacking the dramatic spectacle of warships with their formidable bronze rams and serried banks of oars, represent something equally, if not more, significant. The patient commercial relationships that form the interwoven fabric of Hellenic civilization. A well-built merchant ship might provide unwavering service for decades, undertaking myriad voyages, carrying thousands of tons of cargo, and thereby supporting the sustenance for countless livelihoods of traders, sailors, and everyone whose prosperity depends upon sea-borne commerce. The prosperity of the region fundamentally relies upon the vibrant sea-borne commerce. The intricate construction process adheres to ancient, time-honored rhythms that are as old as the very art of shipbuilding itself. Initially, the foundational timber, known as the keel, is carefully positioned. This singular, monumental piece of wood is destined to serve as the vessel's primary structural support. It must be impeccably linear, meticulously selected from the most substantial and superior arboreal specimens, and allowed to cure for numerous years to achieve optimal stability and inherent robustness. This pivotal event, the keel-laying ritual, invariably sees the prospective proprietor of the ship in attendance, frequently accompanied by votive offerings presented to the sea deity Poseidon and fervent supplications for secure maritime journeys. With the keel firmly established, the fundamental identity and operational characteristics of the ship are irrevocably set. Incrementally, section by section, the structural framework, or skeleton, of the nascent vessel progressively materializes. Every individual rib demands meticulous sculpting to fashion the precise curvatures that will ultimately dictate the ship's hydrodynamic performance and passage across the aquatic medium. An excessively acute design might enable swift navigation through swells, but would severely restrict its cargo capacity. Conversely, a design that is overly broad would ensure admirable stability, yet inevitably impede its velocity. The seasoned master shipwright renders these critical judgments, drawing upon the vessel's designated purpose, the specific desires of its proprietor, and an extensive repository of empirical knowledge gleaned from observing diverse hull configurations in a multitude of maritime environments over many years. The subsequent phase, the planking procedure, demands the utmost artisanal proficiency, as each individual timberboard must be meticulously integrated with its adjacent counterparts, culminating in the construction of a hull renowned for both its inherent structural integrity and its impenetrable resistance to water. These precisely cut planks are secured into position using durable bronze nails and robust wooden dowels. Subsequently, the seams are hermetically sealed with a compound comprising tar and oakum, a fibrous material derived from discarded ropes, which possesses the remarkable property of expanding upon contact with moisture, thereby forging connections that paradoxically achieve greater impermeability when submerged. This venerable engineering technique demonstrates astonishing efficacy. Meticulously constructed wooden vessels are capable of preserving their watertight integrity for many decades, contingent upon consistent and diligent upkeep. Within the spacious confines of the hull, considerable foresight is dedicated to optimizing both the efficient management of freight and the overall well-being of the seafaring personnel. Commercial vessels, by their very nature, necessitate expansive, unencumbered cargo bays, designed to facilitate the secure stowage and effortless retrieval of commodities. Furthermore, they require provisions for potable water storage, engineered to prevent any spoilage or contamination throughout extended maritime expeditions. Essential amenities also encompass designated sleeping quarters for the crew, meticulously designed culinary facilities engineered to mitigate any risk of conflagration, and ample provisions for the sustenance and specialized gear requisite for weeks navigating the open ocean. Each minute specification demands scrupulous pre-planning, as any oversights or errors identified post-launch invariably prove to be financially prohibitive and exceptionally arduous to rectify. The ceremonial inauguration of a newly completed vessel invariably elicits widespread jubilation yet simultaneously precipitates a profound sense of apprehension among all individuals intimately involved in its painstaking fabrication, the culmination of countless months of diligent labor, a myriad of critical choices concerning raw materials and engineering methodologies, and the collective aspirations and fervent supplications poured into the endeavor. All converge upon the singular instant when the ship makes its initial contact with the watery expanse. Queries abound. Will it achieve the anticipated draft? Will its maneuverability be satisfactory? Will it ultimately vindicate the substantial commitment of both temporal resources and physical commodities? While the preponderance of vessels typically functions precisely according to design specifications, there invariably arise minor unforeseen occurrences, necessitating subtle modifications and yielding invaluable insights for subsequent undertakings. Upon its successful launch, the ship embarks upon its true operational existence. However, Alexandros's intricate connection to the vessel persists undiminished. Vessels crafted from timber necessitate an unceasing regimen of upkeep and preservation. Their hulls demand cyclical cleansing and renewed waterproofing. The complex rigging systems invariably require periodic renewal. Furthermore, the tumultuous forces of maritime storms frequently inflict damage that mandates immediate and skilled reparation. These ships routinely make their way back to the very shipyards of their genesis, bearing not only captivating narratives from far-flung harbors, but also tangible proof of the efficacy of their construction methods, alongside valuable recommendations for refinements in forthcoming designs. In essence, these returning maritime conveyances resemble adult offspring revisiting their paternal home, conveying intelligence of the broader global landscape, yet forever intrinsically linked to their foundational genesis. The shipyard itself constitutes a distinct, self-contained community, intricately nested within the broader urban fabric of Piraeus. Within its bustling confines, skilled shipwrights labor in close proximity with expert sailmakers, diligent rope manufacturers, meticulous bronzesmiths crafting essential fasteners and fixtures, and artistic carvers who sculpt the ornate figures adorning the vessel's prows. This symbiotic relationship ensures that each specialized trade mutually reinforces the others, thereby forging an integrated network of refined proficiencies indispensable to the viability of the entire maritime economic sector. Youths maturing within this dynamic milieu acquire not merely the intricacies of their chosen vocations, but also cultivate a comprehensive understanding of every facet pertaining to ship fabrication and ongoing upkeep. Given the profound economic significance of seafaring commerce, shipwrights command a substantial degree of deference and esteem within Athenian societal structures. Their specialized aptitudes are absolutely indispensable to the metropolis's financial well-being. Their painstaking efforts are conspicuously evident in every port, and their masterful artistry is rigorously scrutinized each time their vessels contend with the formidable adversities of tempestuous winds and surging waves. Yet, akin to all authentic artisans, their most profound gratification emanates not from public accolades or outward acknowledgement, but intrinsically from the labor itself, from the tactile sensation of flawlessly interlocking joints. The visual spectacle of elegant contours emerging beneath their dexterous hands, and the profound certainty that their handcrafted marvels will safely transport individuals and valuable commodities across perilous aquatic expanses. With the advent of twilight and the gradual cessation of daily labor, Alexandros undertakes a contemplative stroll through the bustling shipyard, meticulously inspecting ongoing projects situated at diverse phases of their construction. In one section, a foundational keel has been recently positioned for a ship whose culmination remains several months distant. Elsewhere, a different vessel approaches its final stages, awaiting solely its ultimate application of defensive tar and the intricate assembly of its rigging system. Every single maritime craft embodies a multitude of strategic choices, a myriad of precise incisions and meticulous joinery, and an immeasurable investment of assiduous labor. Beyond their tangible form, however, these vessels symbolize a deeper essence. They forge vital linkages between remote geographical locales, present avenues for lucrative commerce and reciprocal cultural diffusion, and embody the inherent human impulsion for discovery and daring exploits that has perennially captivated humanity towards the boundless ocean. Indeed, what other categories of skilled artisans lent their assiduous expertise to the foundational infrastructure that underpinned the flourishing Greek civilization? Elevated upon the majestic gradients of Mount Parnassus, a domain where predatory eagles trace their aerial arcs and the atmosphere becomes perceptibly attenuated, the distinctive resonance of chisel striking stone has reverberated through the ages. Yet, these audible manifestations are not the grand, theatrical reverberations associated with sculptors fashioning iconic masterpieces or visionary architects orchestrating the erection of monumental temples. Rather, they are the measured, persistent, and synchronized percussions emanating from stonecutters diligently fashioning foundational blocks, constructing durable wall stones, and meticulously preparing the innumerable components of precisely hewn masonry that collectively enable the construction of the architectural marvels for which ancient Greece has achieved enduring renown. Demetrios, with a practiced gesture, mops the perspiration from his forehead and meticulously scrutinizes the stone block he has been assiduously shaping since the break of day, verifying its precise dimensions against the wooden pattern suspended from his waist. The revered oracle at Delphi attracts devout supplicants from every corner of the then comprehended globe. Yet a scant number of these visitors pause to contemplate the very stones underfoot as they ascend the hallowed path leading to Apollo's sacred edifice. Each individual block underwent manual extraction and meticulous shaping to ensure an exact congruence with its adjacent components, ultimately finished to an astonishing degree of accuracy, quantifiable in mere fractions of an inch. Such labor unequivocally calls for considerable physical vigor. However, beyond mere strength, it imperatively necessitates profound patience, unwavering precision, and a deeply intuitive comprehension of the very nature of stone. Its inherent fracture patterns, its resistance to environmental degradation, and the varied responses of disparate lithic compositions to distinct implements and methodologies. Demetrios acquired his specialized craft from his paternal uncle, who, in turn, had been instructed by his own grandfather, thereby perpetuating an unbroken lineage of artisanal wisdom extending back to the pioneering Hellenes, who initially discerned the utility of local limestone for quarrying and subsequent transformation into architectural building components. Throughout the passage of multiple generations, the fundamental methodologies employed have remained remarkably consistent. The implements of the trade persist as the enduring bronze chisels and robust iron hammers, supplemented by wooden wedges and rudimentary rope-based hoisting mechanisms. Nonetheless, the profound comprehension of the stone itself encompassing the nuanced assessments regarding its crystalline structure and inherent density, alongside the detection of imperceptible imperfections capable of rendering a block either viable or unusable. This invaluable expertise progressively deepens with each successive year of practical engagement. The meticulous process of quarrying commences with an astute interpretation of the geological stone formation, necessitating a comprehensive grasp of how the lithic material was deposited in primordial marine environments, the precise trajectories of inherent fracture planes, and the specific locales predicted to furnish the most superior building resources. Demetrios possesses the acumen to traverse a quarry site and unerringly designate locations where the stone is ideally suited for intricate sculptural endeavors, sections where its quality permits only rudimentary shaping, or regions where concealed imperfections render it entirely unsuitable for structural purposes. This profound insight is cultivated through the tactile manipulation of innumerable blocks, observing their reactions under various pressures, and discerning the subtle indicators that reliably forecast either successful application or inherent inadequacy. The formidable task of extricating substantial blocks from the natural rock face employs methodologies that often appear almost supernatural to an uninitiated observer. Precise perforations are meticulously bored, following predetermined patterns along the intended lines of cleavage. Subsequently, robust wooden wedges are carefully positioned within these drilled apertures and thoroughly saturated with water. The ensuing expansion of the saturated timber generates immense hydrostatic pressure, which, in turn, effectively cleaves the stone along its anticipated planes of separation. This deliberate procedure, while protracted, is unfailingly reliable, consistently yielding clean fractures with negligible material wastage. Conversely, any attempt to hasten the operation or expedite the extraction of blocks frequently culminates in undesirable fractures that render the precious raw material compromised and ultimately unusable. Subsequent to its extraction, every block necessitates meticulous shaping to its ultimate specifications, employing manual implements that have undergone remarkably little alteration since the epoch of the Bronze Age. The initial, coarse shaping phase is executed with formidable hammers and expansive chisels, serving to dislodge substantial fragments and define the rudimentary configuration. Following this, the intricate work commences with more diminutive instruments, progressively refining the surfaces, scrupulously verifying measurements, and meticulously assessing the congruence with adjacent blocks. The culminating phase of finishing can often entail several days of assiduous labor, dedicated to eradicating any traces of tool marks, fabricating impeccably smooth surfaces, and attaining the exacting precision that permits the seamless interlock of blocks without the need for binding mortar. Disparate architectural undertakings mandate distinct methodologies in the application of stonework. Foundational blocks, for instance, prioritize inherent strength above all other attributes. They are engineered to sustain immense superincumbent weights without exhibiting any fissuring or subsidence. Such components are frequently left in a rudimentary state on their concealed flanks, with the entirety of the artisan's concentration directed towards the load-bearing planes, which must be rendered flawlessly planar and dimensionally accurate. Wall blocks, conversely, demand meticulous care for their exterior facades, which will be prominently displayed in the completed edifice, whereas their interior surfaces permit a comparatively less exacting degree of finish. Column drums, however, necessitate the most exacting precision across all stonework categories, given that even minute inconsistencies will become visually amplified as the vertical structure of the column progressively ascends. The monumental task of transporting the meticulously prepared blocks from their rugged quarry origins to the burgeoning construction site presented its own distinct set of formidable obstacles. Many of these colossal stone pieces often tip the scales at several tons, necessitating their careful transit across treacherous, uneven mountain trails. This arduous journey demanded a methodology steeped more in persistent endurance and inventive problem-solving than in brute force. Ingenious arrangements, such as the strategic deployment of sturdy wooden rollers, intricate rope and pulley systems, and the precise, synchronized efforts among various teams of dedicated laborers, collectively enabled these gargantuan stones to be maneuvered securely over distances that, at first glance, might have seemed utterly insurmountable. Inherent in this endeavor was significant peril. A single misstep or a sudden shift of a massive block could prove fatal to anyone caught in its path. Yet the seasoned crews, through years of arduous practice, cultivated an almost instinctual rhythm and a sophisticated system of nonverbal communication, effectively mitigating these inherent risks to the lowest possible degree. Upon arrival at the bustling construction grounds, the skilled stonecutters engaged in a meticulous collaboration with the master builders, undertaking a series of final, critical adjustments to guarantee an impeccable fit for each individual block. Despite the most diligent initial measurements and the precise crafting of templates back at the quarry, minor modifications were frequently indispensable. A particular stone block might necessitate a subtle reduction in size to harmonize with the minute irregularities of the blocks already laid beneath it, or its surfaces might demand an additional degree of smoothing to ensure a flawless, unyielding contact. This intricate process of on-site fitting not only called upon the full spectrum of expertise acquired during quarry operations, but also introduced the added complexity of coordinating efforts amidst a vibrant tableau of other specialized craftsmen. The carpenters diligently erecting the intricate roof structures, the sculptors meticulously carving their decorative motifs, and the painters assiduously preparing the surfaces for their vibrant embellishments. The essential instruments wielded by the stonecutter, though seemingly unassuming, were remarkably efficacious, each meticulously designed for specific facets of their demanding craft. A range of hammers fulfilled distinct functions. Weighty sledgehammers were employed for the initial, rough fragmentation of stone. Medium-sized hammers were employed for the second, more precise fragmentation of stone. Small hammers were employed for the third. More precise fragmentation of stone hammers facilitated general shaping and refinement. And smaller, more delicate hammers were reserved for the intricate, detailed work. Chisels, available in a diverse array of widths, served various cutting operations, while robust wooden wedges were ingeniously utilized for the controlled splitting of stone. Both bronze and iron tools, each possessing unique properties, were critical for different types of precise cutting. Ensuring unparalleled accuracy were the indispensable measuring devices. Straight rulers, precise squares, dependable plumb lines, and accurate levels. It was paramount that every single tool received diligent upkeep, remaining impeccably sharp and in optimal repair, for a dull or compromised instrument rendered any prospect of precise workmanship utterly unattainable. The sheer physical exertion demanded by the art of stone cutting was nothing short of colossal. This rigorous occupation necessitated extraordinary reservoirs of strength, unwavering stamina, and the mental fortitude to maintain acute concentration. Even when confronted by overwhelming fatigue, oppressive heat, biting cold, and the relentless, deafening clangor of hammers striking stone, Demetrios, a veteran of this demanding trade, bore the indelible marks of his profession. His hands were perpetually marred by a multitude of minor lacerations and stone chips. His back, perpetually stooped, was a testament to countless years spent laboring over ponderous blocks, and his hearing had been irrevocably compromised by decades of incessant tool-generated din. Nevertheless, he also possessed an intangible quality that defied quantification, an innate intuitive communion with stone, an uncanny ability to perceive, within the rough-hewn quarry blocks, the magnificent finished structures they were destined to become. Perhaps the most astonishing attribute of ancient stonework lies in its enduring resilience. Edifices meticulously fashioned by the hands of master craftsmen like Demetrios have triumphantly withstood the ravages of millennia, steadfastly outliving the very civilizations that brought them into being, remaining resolute as empires have successively risen and crumbled around them. This remarkable longevity was far from a mere happenstance. Rather, it was the direct consequence of an unwavering, scrupulous attention to every conceivable nuance of the construction methodology. From the initial, discerning selection of raw materials to the exquisite precision applied in their cutting, and extending to the sophisticated techniques employed for interlocking individual blocks, the dedicated stonecutters of Delphi devoted their formidable skills not merely to the construction of grand temples and stately public edifices. Their expertise was equally indispensable in crafting the essential, practical infrastructure that ensured the seamless operation of the entire sanctuary. This vital network encompassed robust retaining walls, expertly engineered to prevent the erosion of mountainside soil, intricate drainage systems, meticulously designed to channel torrential rainwater safely away from vulnerable buildings, carefully laid steps and pathways, facilitating the secure navigation of the steep, challenging terrain for throngs of pilgrims, capacious storage buildings, designated for housing sacred offerings and vital supplies, and comfortable living quarters provided for the resident priests and diligent workers. Indeed, every facet of this extensive construction, from the most prominent temple to the most unassuming pathway, commanded the identical rigorous attention to both materials and artisanal techniques as was bestowed upon the celebrated, iconic temples. This unwavering dedication persisted despite the fact that a substantial portion of this foundational work often remained entirely hidden from the casual gaze of transient observers, its intricate importance silently serving the greater whole. The inherent seasonal rhythms governing ancient construction work dictated that stonecutters frequently enjoyed several months of relative respite each winter, during which they could pursue a diverse range of alternative endeavors. Some individuals embarked on extensive travels, journeying to various construction sites across the vast expanse of the Mediterranean, effectively chasing the building season as it migrated. Others judiciously utilized this interlude for the essential tasks of quarrying and meticulously stockpiling raw materials, laying the groundwork for the ensuing year's ambitious projects. Still others dedicated their time to the crucial mission of instructing and mentoring apprentices, assiduously transmitting the invaluable reservoir of knowledge and the refined practical skills that were absolutely vital for ensuring the enduring perpetuation of their venerable craft across generations. These tranquil, contemplative months were, in essence, as profoundly significant as the bustling, intensely active construction season itself. They afforded invaluable time for the meticulous maintenance of indispensable tools, for comprehensive planning and strategic foresight, and, perhaps most crucially, for the kind of profound reflection and introspective analysis that invariably culminated in tangible advancements and refined improvements in their intricate techniques. The profound religious significance inherently associated with Delphi bestowed an additional, transcendent dimension upon the stonecutters' already demanding labor. They possessed an inherent understanding that their meticulous craft contributed to something immeasurably grander than mere utilitarian construction. They perceived themselves as the architects of sacred spaces, hallowed ground, where mortal beings could forge a profound connection with the divine, where the enigmatic prophecies of the oracle would reverberate through countless generations, and where countless pilgrims would ultimately discover spiritual enlightenment and profound personal renewal. This overarching, sacred objective imbued even the most mundane and repetitive tasks with a deep wellspring of meaning, elevating the patient, painstaking work of cutting and precisely fitting stone into what felt akin to a form of reverent prayer, a tangible physical offering presented to the benevolent deities who perpetually watched over this singularly holy sanctuary. As Demetrios, with the day's demanding work now concluded, commenced the methodical cleaning and careful storage of his well-worn tools, his gaze instinctively drifted upwards towards the magnificent temple, steadily ascending and taking majestic form above him. He understood, with a profound clarity, that each and every block meticulously placed within those towering walls had passed through hands remarkably similar to his own, had been expertly shaped by instruments identical to those he now held, and had been painstakingly fitted into its designated position through the patient, unwavering application of skills painstakingly honed and transmitted across countless generations. On the morrow, he would embark upon the shaping of yet another block, and then still another, each contribution a testament to his enduring dedication, a vital component of a monumental construction project destined to gracefully outlast his own mortal existence by many centuries. Indeed, one might ponder what other dedicated craftspeople, through their patient and meticulous endeavors, discovered such profound meaning in work that was destined to far outlive its original creators. In the profound, hushed stillness of ancient Athens's pre-dawn darkness, as the vast majority of the city's inhabitants remained deeply immersed in slumber, a woman named Thalia diligently coaxed a flickering flame to life within the expansive, formidable stone oven of her bustling bakery. The essential labor of nourishing an entire community commenced many hours before any thought of breakfast could even arise, unfolding during that serene, quiet interval when skilled bakers, through a process akin to ancient alchemy, meticulously transformed a quartet of unpretentious ingredients: humble flour, pure water, crystalline salt, and the enigmatic, vital essence of wild yeast into the very bread that fundamentally sustained life itself. Her hands, bearing the unmistakable hallmarks of 3 decades of unwavering experience, moved with an almost balletic confidence and innate precision. They expertly built the roaring fire that would gradually imbue the oven's thick, heat-retaining walls with the necessary intense warmth, systematically preparing the venerable baking chamber for yet another day of that miraculous ancient alchemy. which unfailingly transmuted raw grain into life-giving sustenance. The strategically located bakery occupied a prominent position at the nexus of two bustling thoroughfares, ideally situated to cater to the ceaseless daily culinary requirements of the surrounding neighborhood. During the vibrant daylight hours, the establishment would inevitably become a lively hub, teeming with an eclectic mix of customers, filled with the animated hum of conversation, and punctuated by the effervescent, cheerful tumult of commerce. However, in these nascent, tranquil hours of early morning, the entire domain belonged exclusively to Thalia, enveloped in the quiet, meditative rhythms of her deeply ingrained craft. With a practiced, almost reverent grace, she meticulously inspected the rows of doughy loaves that had been slowly proofing throughout the night. Testing their readiness with an exquisitely gentle, almost imperceptible touch, her sensitive fingertips conveyed every crucial nuance she needed to discern regarding optimal timing, precise temperature, and the subtle, mysterious life force, the very spirit of leavening, that rendered the miraculous transformation of bread truly feasible. The profound art of bread-making fundamentally commenced with a comprehensive understanding of grain itself. The diverse varieties of wheat, barley, and other essential cereals that industrious farmers, much like those pioneering Greek agriculturalists, had painstakingly learned to cultivate with remarkable foresight many thousands of years in the distant past. Distinct varieties of grain inherently yielded markedly different flavor profiles and textural qualities, and truly adept bakers possessed the nuanced wisdom to artfully combine them to achieve highly specific culinary outcomes. Flour derived from wheat, for instance, invariably produced the light, exquisitely airy loaves that were customarily favored for auspicious occasions and celebratory feasts. Conversely, barley, with its robust character, consistently yielded a denser, more profoundly nutritious bread, renowned for its capacity to thoroughly assuage hunger and provide a sustained, enduring source of vital energy. Breads crafted from a blend of various grains offered both complex, intriguing flavors and the pragmatic advantage of judiciously utilizing whatever cereal crops were most readily accessible at economically favorable prices. The arduous process of milling grain into fine flour constituted a foundational task, one that intrinsically linked every single loaf of bread to the overarching agricultural cycle, a cycle that commenced its inexorable journey in distant, sun-drenched fields. Thalia, ever the astute professional, assiduously cultivated and maintained robust relationships with several reputable local mills, possessing an innate and profound understanding that the inherent quality of the flour she procured was the singular determinant of the ultimate excellence of her finished bread. Her highly developed senses allowed her to discern, purely by tactile examination and olfactory assessment, whether a batch of flour was genuinely fresh, meticulously ground to the correct consistency, and crucially, entirely unadulterated by the nefarious additions that unscrupulous purveyors occasionally incorporated to inflate their illicit profits. Flour of superior quality felt exquisitely smooth and imparted a subtle, pleasing warmth to the touch. It exuded a clean, subtly sweet aroma, and perhaps most importantly, it consistently produced dough that behaved with predictable compliance during handling and, when baked, transformed into bread possessing both exceptional flavor and an exemplary texture. Water, the second undeniably essential constituent in the baker's repertoire, might, at first glance, appear to be a straightforward element. However, experienced bakers knew unequivocally that different hydrological sources invariably produced distinct and often dramatically varied outcomes. The intricate interplay of mineral content, ambient temperature, and the inherent purity of the water all exerted a profound influence on the dough's behavior, on the vigorous growth and activity of the yeast, and ultimately on the nuanced taste of the finished bread. Thalia, with her discerning palate and astute observations, meticulously drew her water from a particular, venerated well, one widely celebrated for its consistently high quality. Through years of dedicated practice and keen observation, she had mastered the intricate art of subtly adjusting her baking techniques to harmonize with the naturally occurring seasonal fluctuations in both the water's temperature and its precise mineral composition. During the frigid winter months, the inherently cold water necessitated a considerably longer mixing duration to facilitate the proper development of the dough's crucial gluten structure, ensuring its strength and elasticity. Conversely, during the sweltering heat of summer, she would, on occasion, prudently incorporate ice into her water, a clever stratagem designed to prevent the dough from becoming excessively warm during the intensive mixing process, thereby safeguarding its delicate integrity. Salt, far from being a mere flavoring agent, served a multitude of critical functions within the complex chemistry of bread making. Beyond its capacity to enhance taste, it played an indispensable role in strengthening the gluten structure, thereby enabling the dough to steadfastly retain its desired form throughout the crucial stages of rising and baking. Moreover, it precisely regulated the activity of the yeast, effectively preventing the bread from proofing too rapidly and consequently developing an undesirable coarse texture. Furthermore, salt acted as a potent natural preservative, significantly extending the bread's practical shelf life and maintaining its freshness for a longer duration. The precise quantity of salt incorporated into the dough demanded an extraordinarily meticulous level of control. An insufficient amount would inevitably result in bread that was both bland in flavor and structurally weak, prone to crumbling. Conversely, an excessive quantity would severely inhibit the vital activity of the yeast, simultaneously imparting unpleasantly strong, overtly salty flavors that would render the bread unpalatable. However, the most profoundly enigmatic ingredient remained yeast itself, that microscopic living organism possessing the astonishing power to miraculously transform dense, heavy dough into exquisitely light, ethereal bread. In Thalia's era, long before the advent of commercially produced yeast, skilled bakers meticulously maintained mother starters, carefully nurtured mixtures of flour and water that ingeniously captured and cultivated the wild yeasts naturally present in the surrounding air. These living starters then provided the indispensable leavening power for each and every day's fresh bread. The humble starter, a living culture of yeast and bacteria, served as the indispensable fermentative agent for each day's fresh bread. These vital starters demanded unceasing daily vigilance, consistent nourishment with fresh flour and pure water, alongside meticulous thermal regulation to ensure the yeast remained vigorous and potent. A well-tended starter possessed the remarkable capacity to endure for numerous years, even decades, frequently being bequeathed through successive generations as a cherished family heirloom. The precise art of mixing and kneading the dough represented the culminating demonstration of the artisan's expertise. Insufficient blending would prevent the ingredients from properly integrating, leading to bread characterized by an undesirable texture and an inconsistent internal structure. Conversely, excessive manipulation could rupture the delicate gluten network, yielding loaves that were unduly dense and heavy. Thalia, through diligent practice, had cultivated the ability to discern the dough's optimal state through tactile assessment. Properly developed dough exhibited a supple, resilient consistency that yielded with anticipated pliability to stretching and shaping. The kneading process also effectively incorporated air into the mixture, establishing the initial structural framework that the yeast would subsequently expand during the proofing stage. Rising, or fermentation, was arguably the most demanding aspect of bread making, a true test of endurance and watchful waiting. The baker was tasked with providing the optimal atmospheric conditions, sufficiently warm to foster robust microbial vigor, yet not so warm as to precipitate an overly rapid fermentation, adequately humid to preclude undesirable desiccation of the exterior, but not so moist as to render the dough adherent and difficult to manipulate. Thalia had developed an innate understanding for these nuanced conditions, finely calibrating the duration of proofing and the thermal environment based on prevailing weather patterns, seasonal variations, and the unique properties and composition of each individual batch of dough. The shaping of loaves demanded both mastery of craft and an aesthetic appreciation. Various forms served distinct practical purposes. Elongated loaves offered an expansive surface for the development of a robust exterior, catering to those who relished the satisfyingly resilient mouthfeel of a well-baked crust. Rounded loaves achieved a more uniform internal doneness and retained their succulence for an extended period. Small, individual rolls offered practical utility to patrons seeking convenient single servings. Each particular shape necessitated its own distinct methods of manipulation, specific proofing durations, and tailored thermal treatments during baking. Thalia derived profound satisfaction from crafting baked goods that were not merely wholesome and palatable, but also aesthetically pleasing. Recognizing that people appreciated the visual presentation alongside the gustatory experience. The final rising after shaping was paramount for attaining the desired internal consistency in the finished bread. Underrisen loaves invariably resulted in a dense and heavy product, whereas overrisen bread might succumb to structural failure within the oven's heat, leading to an uneven texture and poor overall volume. Thalia employed a repertoire of assessment methods to judge readiness, delicately prodding the mass to observe how quickly it rebounded with resilience, scrutinizing the exterior for indicators of adequate microbial activity, and calculating the proofing duration based on her extensive experience with similar conditions. This acute discernment was cultivated only through decades of dedicated application and meticulous observation of outcomes. Baking itself necessitated a profound comprehension of the operational dynamics of the colossal masonry furnace that presided over the bakery. These ovens were brought to temperature by igniting fires directly within the baking chamber, after which the smoldering coals and ash were carefully extracted. Once the stone walls had absorbed sufficient thermal energy to bake multiple batches of bread, the accumulated residual heat baked the loaves with a measured and consistent distribution of warmth, fostering the robust, resilient exteriors and succulent, yielding crumb that characterized artisanal loaves baked in a classic manner. Orchestrating the thermal environment and optimizing the placement of dough within the chamber demanded an intricate proficiency cultivated over numerous seasons of dedicated effort. The sequence of baking adhered to a meticulously devised strategy that ensured optimal utilization of the furnace's thermal capacity. Initially, the most intense thermal period was reserved for robust, substantial loaves that required vigorous warmth to foster a well-formed, caramelized exterior. As the temperature gradually subsided, more fragile culinary creations were introduced: confectionery loaves, pastries, and other items that might scorch in the initial high heat. Finally, the lingering ambient heat was employed for supplementary tasks, such as desiccating botanical components, gently heating pre-cooked provisions, or other activities that benefited from a mild thermal influence. Every available resource was judiciously employed within a competently managed bakery. The social role of the neighborhood bakery transcended the mere provision of staple sustenance. It served as a vital communal hub where neighbors shared current tidings, deliberated on civic happenings, and nurtured the interpersonal bonds that collectively bound communities together. Patrons frequently forged enduring bonds with their bakers, learning to strategically schedule their arrivals for when their preferred varieties of baked goods emerged from the oven, relying implicitly on the artisan's discernment regarding quality and freshness, and depending on the bakery as a dependable fount of essential nourishment. Thalia possessed an intimate understanding of her patrons' tastes and calibrated her output to align with these individual demands. She knew that Marcos the potter preferred a robust, hearty barley loaf that would fortify him during arduous periods at his wheel, while Helena the weaver favored airy, delicate wheat buns that would avoid inducing somnolence during her detailed work. Children often requested confectionery loaves enriched with golden honey and crunchy nuts, whereas elderly customers sought tender breads, offering effortless mastication. This personalized knowledge allowed her to serve her community with a degree of efficacy unattainable by impersonal, mass-production enterprises. The pivotal economic significance of bread in ancient society meant that bakers like Thalia held roles of profound societal accountability. Bread was not an indulgence, but an indispensable staple, forming the cornerstone of dietary well-being for most people during periods of agricultural scarcity or market volatility. Bakers were frequently compelled to reconcile the demands of their clientele with the imperative of their own commercial viability. They often offered deferred payment options to reliable patrons during difficult times, understanding that fostering robust communal bonds superseded the pursuit of immediate financial gains. The cyclical fluctuations throughout the year in grain availability and quality rendered the baker's work both engaging and demanding. Freshly gathered agricultural yields brought enhanced gustatory profiles and superior processing characteristics, yet also necessitated modifications to processing methodologies. Aged cereals might require altered liquid ratios or extended blending durations. Atmospheric conditions influenced not only the foundational ingredients, but also the ambient conditions of the baking space. Moisture-laden periods necessitated recalibrations in proofing durations, while frigid temperatures could demand alterations in furnace operation. A skilled baker mastered the art of adapting to these fluctuations instead of contending with them. Religious and cultural traditions also profoundly shaped the artisan's craft. Sacred festivals frequently called for distinctive baked goods with prescribed forms and customary components. Nuptial festivities demanded intricately adorned breads that represented affluence and fecundity. Mourning assemblies called for unadorned, nourishing provisions, befitting the gravity of the circumstances. Thalia preserved an extensive repertoire of formulae and methodologies for all these particular requirements, understanding that her professional vocation encompassed both the safeguarding of ancestral customs and the provision of essential daily nourishment. As the daylight hours advanced and loyal patrons commenced their daily pilgrimage for fresh bread, Thalia felt the profound contentment derived from a task meticulously executed. The freshly baked goods, resting upon slatted timber shelves, embodied countless hours of meticulous focus, a lifetime of honed expertise, and an inherited legacy of wisdom passed down through the venerable fraternity of bakers. Each loaf would sustain a household, facilitate daily endeavors, and supply the vital vigor that ensured the smooth operation of the collective. Tomorrow, she would recommence her efforts with fresh preparations, confronting novel obstacles and seizing fresh prospects to practice the ancient craft that elevated humble components into the very essence of subsistence. What other fundamental civic provisions required such meticulous, day-to-day dedication to perpetuate the established cadence of ancient Greek life? Just as bakers like Thalia sustained their locales with essential provisions, the couriers and runners of ancient Greece fostered vital links across disparate geographies with their unwavering, diligent commitment. Philippus repositioned the sturdy leather satchel draped over his shoulder and departed the city of Athens as the first light of day illuminated the peaks of Mount Pentelicus, embarking on yet another expedition that would transport vital tidings, personal correspondence, and authoritative communiques across the rugged, elevated terrain delineating the boundaries between sovereign urban centers. His appointed terminus for the current day was the illustrious city of Corinth, a journey spanning 2 continuous days of unwavering progress over pathways that varied from meticulously laid stone thoroughfares to rudimentary earthen tracks, and at times, merely discernible impressions traversing untamed wilderness. The demanding vocation of an accredited courier demanded a confluence of unyielding physical stamina, intricate topographical understanding, and astute interpersonal competencies that were rarely found in a single individual. Philippus had to be sufficiently robust to traverse distances of 20 or 30 miles daily on foot, bearing not only dispatches, but also the essential provisions requisite for extended expeditions. He had to be intimately acquainted with the routes, the dependable waypoints, and the environmental perils contingent on the time of year. Furthermore, he had to be sufficiently reputable and dependable that civic administrators, commercial traders, and individual inhabitants would confide to his care sensitive correspondence, precious parchments, and critical intelligence that bore direct implications for the economic well-being and, on occasion, the very existence of individuals. The apprenticeship for a courier commenced during formative years, with youths exhibiting natural aptitude for swift locomotion being incrementally exposed to extended ranges and more arduous landscapes. The youthful Philippus initiated his career by ferrying communiques across the various districts of Athens, assimilating the intricate labyrinth of urban pathways, cultivating the muscular fortitude essential for sustained perambulation, and honing a consistent rhythm that enabled a runner to traverse the greatest possible expanse without succumbing to fatigue. As he demonstrated dependability on localized circuits, he was entrusted with more extensive missions, progressively advancing to the trans-urban pathways that constituted the fundamental infrastructure of Hellenic informational conduits. The thoroughfares themselves unveiled a chronicle of progressive enhancement and proliferation spanning centuries. Certain pathways mirrored venerable tracks, deeply etched by innumerable generations of wayfarers. Pastoralists guiding their herds to seasonal grazing grounds, merchants transporting commodities between bustling marketplaces, devotees journeying to sacred sanctuaries, and military forces maneuvering across diverse territories. These ancient arteries were not merely routes, but living testaments to persistent human movement, echoing with the footsteps of those who had traversed them for millennia, connecting distant communities through the simple act of passage. Conversely, other roadways represented more contemporary engineering feats, meticulously paved with robust stone blocks and strategically designed to offer the most direct conduits between pivotal destinations. These modern constructions symbolized a deliberate effort to optimize travel efficiency, showcasing advanced architectural ingenuity. Nonetheless, even the finest roads demanded perpetual upkeep, and the swift couriers became adept at circumventing erosions, landslides, and episodic inundations that could render familiar passages temporarily impassable. Their journeys were a continuous dance with nature's unpredictable forces, demanding constant vigilance and adaptability. The inherent topographical characteristics of Greece rendered long-distance communication particularly arduous. Imposing mountain ranges bifurcated valleys that, while seemingly mere miles apart as the crow might fly, necessitated laborious hours of strenuous ascent to traverse on foot. These natural barriers transformed short distances into formidable expeditions, isolating communities and complicating the swift transmission of vital intelligence. The rugged terrain was a formidable adversary, demanding extraordinary stamina and navigational prowess from anyone daring to cross it. Coastal itineraries, while circumventing some of the dramatic altitudinal shifts, subjected travelers to a distinct array of perils. Tempestuous gales could render shoreline paths perilous, while seasonal deluges from swollen rivers demanded perilous fording. Furthermore, stretches of coastline where precipitous cliffs plunged directly into the azure sea left no viable space for thoroughfares whatsoever. These maritime routes, though offering a reprieve from mountainous climbs, introduced their own set of challenges, from treacherous weather to impassable natural barriers, each demanding a different kind of resilience. Philippus, a seasoned courier, possessed an encyclopedic mental cartography of the entire expansive region, meticulously amassed through countless years of arduous travel and astute observation. He unerringly knew which specific streams offered dependable sources of potable water, which particular villages extended a warm reception to transient wayfarers, and which, conversely, regarded outsiders with suspicion. Furthermore, he was intimately acquainted with which mountain passes remained accessible deepest into the frigid winter months and opened earliest in the burgeoning spring. His mind was a living, breathing atlas, constantly updated with critical, life-saving details. This invaluable compendium of local wisdom could never be gleaned from scholarly tomes or static maps. It was exclusively acquired through direct, visceral experience, through the painstaking accumulation of minute particulars that only the most seasoned travelers utilized to ensure the safety and efficiency of their arduous expeditions. It was a knowledge forged in the crucible of countless journeys, a testament to the power of first-hand engagement with the landscape and its inhabitants, a silent language understood only by those who walked the paths. The dispatches he assiduously conveyed constituted the very lifeblood of ancient Greek civilization. Official communiques exchanged between civic administrations, meticulously detailing diplomatic negotiations, strategic military movements, burgeoning trade agreements, and the myriad other critical affairs that necessitated intricate coordination among autonomous communities. These messages were the sinews that bound the disparate city-states, enabling a degree of shared governance and mutual understanding. Commercial correspondence between astute merchants meticulously arranged intricate shipments, skillfully negotiated advantageous prices, and freely disseminated crucial intelligence concerning market conditions in distant metropolises. Beyond the realm of commerce, private letters exchanged between devoted family members, cherished friends, and discerning business associates diligently preserved personal relationships across the vast distances that often separated Greek communities. These personal missives, though less grand than official decrees, were equally vital in maintaining the social fabric. The paramount concern regarding the security of messages was a perennial preoccupation, given that information inherently possessed immense value, and certain individuals would go to extraordinary lengths to intercept communications that might confer upon them commercial or political leverage. The stakes were high, and the potential for espionage was ever present in a world where intelligence could shift the balance of power. Philippus, through years of experience, had assiduously acquired a repertoire of sophisticated techniques for safeguarding the sensitive contents of his messages. These included intricate coding systems specifically designed to obfuscate confidential information, the strategic deployment of multiple copies dispatched via divergent routes to ensure that at least one safely reached its intended destination, and the utilization of precise recognition signals that allowed him to unequivocally verify the identity of the designated recipients. His methods were a testament to the ingenuity required to protect vital intelligence. The most exquisitely sensitive messages were entrusted solely to memory rather than being transcribed onto perishable scrolls. Although this demanding practice necessitated couriers endowed with truly exceptional mnemonic capabilities and an unassailable reputation for absolute reliability. Such messengers were living archives, their minds the most secure repositories for information deemed too critical to commit to any physical form, embodying the ultimate trust placed in their integrity. Inclement weather presented ceaseless impediments that demanded perpetual adaptation and astute judgment. The advent of spring brought with it pervasive mud that could render roads nearly impassable, while the scorching heat of summer posed a significant hazard for anyone attempting long-distance travel during the most sweltering hours of the day. Each season brought its own unique set of challenges, transforming familiar routes into unpredictable gauntlets. Autumnal tempests could cause rivers to swell rapidly and unexpectedly, washing out bridges with scant warning. The harsh grip of winter brought with it heavy snowfall, which invariably closed mountain passes and rendered travel treacherous or entirely impossible on high-altitude routes. These climatic vicissitudes were not mere inconveniences, but formidable obstacles that often dictated the very feasibility of a messenger's journey, demanding respect and careful planning. Experienced couriers learned to meticulously interpret subtle meteorological indicators and judiciously adjust their itineraries accordingly, often electing to wait for several days for conditions to ameliorate, rather than recklessly risking perilous travel. Their lives, and the integrity of their messages, often depended on their ability to read the sky and the land, making informed decisions that prioritized safety and successful delivery over speed. The exacting physical demands inherent in constant travel necessitated meticulous attention to nutrition, hydration, and restorative rest. Philippus invariably carried dried provisions that would not spoil during multi-day expeditions: hard bread, sun-dried fruits, various nuts, and aged cheese that preserved well rather than succumbing to decay. His provisions were chosen for their durability and nutritional value, ensuring sustenance through long, arduous stretches. He possessed an intimate knowledge of the precise location of every reliable water source along his habitual routes, and he prudently carried water containers for those extended stretches where natural sources were conspicuously scarce. His survival depended on this precise cartography of vital resources. Sleep often entailed camping beneath the vast expanse of the stars, cocooned in a simple cloak, relying on sheer fortune and unwavering vigilance for protection against both predatory wild animals and potential human threats. Nonetheless, this arduous profession also proffered unique emoluments that few other occupations could rival. Professional couriers witnessed more of the world than the vast majority of people in ancient times, intimately experiencing the profound diversity of landscapes, cultures, and modes of existence that flourished within the extensive Greek sphere. Their journeys were not merely about delivery, but about immersion in a vibrant, multifaceted world. They cultivated a more expansive perspective on unfolding events, comprehending how localized developments seamlessly integrated into broader patterns, and discerning intricate connections between geographically distant communities that might remain entirely imperceptible to individuals who remained confined to a single locale. This invaluable breadth of knowledge rendered them indispensable sources of information and sagacious counsel, earning them the esteemed respect of the communities they diligently served. The intricate social dimensions of a messenger's work were no less significant than the formidable physical challenges. Messengers frequently served as informal conduits of news, conveying not only official dispatches, but also circulating gossip, rumors, and general information that played a crucial role in helping communities maintain vital connections with the wider world. They were the living newspapers, bridging gaps and fostering a sense of shared experience. They brought tidings of vibrant festivals and joyous celebrations, reported on the outcomes of good or poor harvests, and disseminated critical information concerning political developments that might influence trade or travel. This informal communication network was instrumental in cultivating the profound sense of shared culture that inextricably bound the Greek world together, notwithstanding its inherent political fragmentation. The cultivation of robust relationships with innkeepers, stable owners, and other individuals who provided essential services to travelers was absolutely pivotal for successful messenger work. These invaluable relationships were meticulously forged over years of honest dealings, reliable payments, and mutual respect. A messenger who assiduously cultivated a sterling reputation for fair dealings and engaging conversation would invariably discover that doors opened more readily, information flowed more freely, and crucial assistance was readily available whenever emergencies inevitably arose. Conversely, messengers who flagrantly abused hospitality or consistently proved unreliable quickly found themselves unequivocally unwelcome at the very establishments upon which they fundamentally depended for the successful completion of their routes. The strategic implementation of relay systems allowed messages to traverse distances with a speed that no single individual messenger could ever achieve. Instead of one person undertaking an entire arduous journey, messages were meticulously transferred between fresh runners, strategically stationed at regular intervals, thereby permitting a continuous stream of fresh messengers to maintain maximum velocity over shorter, more manageable distances. These sophisticated systems demanded meticulous coordination and absolute unwavering reliability from all participants, as a failure at any single point would irrevocably sever the entire communicative chain. However, when these systems operated flawlessly, relay systems possessed the unparalleled capacity to convey urgent messages faster than any other ancient communication methodology. Navigation skills became an intuitive, almost instinctual second nature to experienced messengers who learned to expertly orient themselves using the sun's trajectory, the celestial bodies, prominent landmarks, and subtle environmental cues that unerringly indicated direction and precise location. The profound ability to steadfastly maintain a course during nocturnal journeys, amidst dense fog or within unfamiliar terrain, could signify the critical difference between a successful delivery and perilous, costly delays. These indispensable skills were assiduously developed gradually through meticulous observation and the kind of acute attention to natural signs that ancient peoples cultivated out of sheer necessity for survival and efficiency. The undeniable economic significance of reliable communication ensured that professional messengers enjoyed consistent employment and commanded considerable social respect. Despite the inherent physical hardships of their demanding work, astute merchants depended on them for vital intelligence concerning market conditions. Governmental bodies relied heavily on them for crucial diplomatic and administrative communications, and ordinary individuals entrusted them with personal messages that meticulously maintained family and social relationships across vast distances. This pervasive dependence not only generated substantial job security, but also imposed significant responsibility, as failures in communication could precipitate severe consequences for everyone involved. As Philippus reached the halfway point of his arduous journey to Corinth and paused to seek respite at a familiar welcoming inn, he reflected deeply on the indispensable role his work played in meticulously maintaining the intricate connections that inextricably bound Greek civilization together. Each precious message he carefully carried represented a singular thread in the immensely complex tapestry of relationships, be they political, commercial, or deeply personal, that enabled widely scattered communities to function cohesively as a unified culture. Tomorrow, he would diligently complete this particular delivery and embark upon the return journey to Athens, carrying with him a fresh consignment of new messages that would perpetuate the endless, vital circulation of information, tirelessly keeping the ancient world meticulously connected. What other patient, unsung servants meticulously maintained the foundational infrastructure that allowed ancient Greek civilization to flourish across such vast distances? While intrepid messengers like Philippus carried words across immense geographical expanses, the diligent scribes of ancient Greece assiduously preserved words across monumental spans of time. In a small, unadorned, windowless chamber situated beneath the bustling Athenian agora, Lysander carefully dips his reed pen into meticulously prepared ink and steadfastly continues the painstaking process of copying the intricate legal code that will govern his revered city for countless generations to come, ensuring the enduring legacy of its laws. That would govern his city for countless generations to come. Every individual character etched onto the surface must achieve impeccable formation, each word meticulously spelled without error, and every line precisely spaced with unwavering consistency. Even a seemingly minor imperfection within crucial legal instruments possesses the potential to drastically alter their intended meanings, inadvertently introduce detrimental loopholes, or even entirely invalidate vital provisions. Therefore, this profound undertaking necessitates not merely absolute mental absorption and boundless perseverance, but also a deeply ingrained reverence for the written word, a profound respect that remains largely incomprehensible to many individuals within this predominantly oral culture. The monumental achievement of preserving intricate laws in a tangible written format stands as one of humanity's most significant advancements, though its fundamental role in contemporary existence often causes its immense importance to be entirely overlooked. Prior to the advent of written script, legal principles existed solely within the fallible confines of human memory, transmitted verbally across successive generations by sagacious judges and venerable elders who meticulously upheld these delicate oral traditions. However, human recollection is inherently prone to imperfection. Interpretations inevitably shift and evolve over the passage of time, inevitably giving rise to contentious disputes regarding the precise content and intent of a particular statute. In stark contrast, meticulously compiled written law codes bestow an invaluable bedrock of stability and unwavering consistency, granting the crucial to consult the exact phraseology whenever complex questions or ambiguities arise. Lysander assiduously acquired his specialized craft through the time-honored traditional apprenticeship model, dedicating numerous years to serving under the discerning guidance of venerable master scribes. These seasoned mentors imparted to him not only the intricate technical proficiencies essential for flawless transcription, but also the profound ethical responsibilities inherently linked to the careful safeguarding of critically important documents. His rigorous training commenced with the meticulous preparation of the very materials necessary for writing. The precise cutting of reed pens to achieve the ideal point and optimal flexibility. The careful mixing of specialized inks formulated to retain their legibility for many centuries, and the intricate preparation of parchment and papyrus surfaces, ensuring they would flawlessly accept the ink and maintain their structural integrity over extended periods. The unique physical demands intrinsic to scribal occupations, while distinct from the exertions faced by swift messengers or skilled craftsmen, are nonetheless profoundly arduous and undeniable. Prolonged hours spent hunched over expansive writing surfaces inevitably lead to the development of chronic ailments affecting the back and neck. The exceptionally fine, detailed nature of the work places immense strain upon the eyes, a challenge exacerbated when laboring under the flickering, dim illumination provided by oil lamps or candles. Furthermore, the ceaseless, repetitive motions inherent in the act of writing can induce considerable discomfort and pain in the hands and arms. Yet, perhaps the most formidable hurdle remains the unrelenting mental requirement for sustained, unbroken concentration, as even a fleeting moment of inattention can introduce egregious errors, compelling the scribe to laboriously recommence entire sections from the very beginning. The vast compendium of legal documents that Lysander painstakingly duplicates encompasses virtually every conceivable facet of civic existence. This includes intricate commercial laws that meticulously govern contractual agreements, expansive trade arrangements, and the nuanced principles of property ownership. Precise criminal statutes that definitively delineate offenses and prescribe appropriate retributions. Fundamental constitutional provisions that rigorously establish governmental operational procedures and safeguard the inviolable rights of citizens. And comprehensive administrative regulations that extend their purview to everything from the bustling operations of public markets to the solemn conduct of religious festivals. Each distinct classification of document mandates its own specific formatting conventions, varying levels of granular detail, and unique methodological approaches to organization and inter-document cross-referencing. Lysander's profound comprehension of the substantive content he meticulously copies significantly enhances his efficacy as a scribe, enabling him to acutely discern potential discrepancies that might have inadvertently infiltrated source documents and to scrupulously uphold unwavering consistency in specialized legal terminology. He has cultivated an extensive and nuanced understanding of Athenian law, an erudition acquired not through conventional, formal legal education, but rather through the patient and painstaking process of transcribing thousands of diverse legal provisions. Keenly observing the intricate interrelationships between disparate statutes and diligently noting how fundamental legal principles are judiciously applied across a myriad of practical circumstances. The raw materials designated for the creation of legal documents must invariably adhere to the most exacting benchmarks of resilience and enduring permanence. Papyrus, meticulously fashioned from the fibrous reeds indigenous to Egypt, offers an admirable surface for inscription, but regrettably succumbs to relatively swift degradation when exposed to humid climatic conditions. Parchment, conversely, meticulously prepared from specially treated animal skins, commands a higher financial outlay, but boasts significantly superior longevity and demonstrates remarkable resistance to damage incurred through frequent handling. For the most critically important legal instruments, discerning scribes selectively employ only the finest available parchment, meticulously prepared according to ancient, specialized techniques, designed to maximize its enduring lifespan and its inherent resistance to the ravages of fading, cracking, or any other insidious forms of deterioration. Inks, too, present their own complex array of challenges, for inappropriate formulations possess the inherent capacity to discolor, bleed, or even corrosively erode through the delicate writing surfaces over the inexorable march of time. The most superior inks, specifically formulated for the creation of permanent legal documents, are meticulously compounded from precisely prepared mixtures of dense carbon black and potent binding agents. These components are expertly blended to ensure that the pigment deeply penetrates into the very fibers of the writing surface, rather than merely superficial adhesion upon its exterior. Furthermore, these specialized inks necessitate regular, fresh preparation, as they tend to rapidly thicken and become exceedingly difficult to manipulate if allowed to remain stored for unduly extended periods. The intricate art of preparing a truly exceptional ink is almost a specialized discipline in itself, demanding a sophisticated understanding of chemical properties, the nuanced science of materials, and the precise idiosyncratic requirements of various types of documents. The entire writing process adheres to a rigorously established set of procedures, all meticulously engineered to minimize the potential for errors and to guarantee unwavering consistency throughout the resultant text. Initially, Lysander undertakes a meticulous and comprehensive reading of the source document, diligently identifying any latent issues or obscure passages that necessitate clarification before the transcription process can even commence. Subsequently, he meticulously plans the precise layout of the new document, painstakingly calculating the exact spatial allocation required for each distinct section, determining the optimal placement for page breaks, and strategically arranging the text for maximum clarity, readability, and ultimate legal utility. The actual act of copying is then executed in carefully orchestrated stages, each phase incorporating built-in opportunities for the detection and subsequent correction of any nascent errors. The first stage involves the creation of a preliminary rough draft, wherein the paramount objective is the accurate capture of all content, with less immediate concern for absolute formatting perfection. This draft then undergoes an exhaustive proofreading, meticulously compared word by word against the original source document, and painstakingly corrected as required. Only upon the successful completion of this rigorous vetting does work truly commence on the final, definitive version, which must unfailingly meet the most exacting standards of legibility, precise formatting, and impeccable physical presentation. Legal documents, by their very nature, demand an exceptional degree of attention to formatting and organizational structure, qualities that are paramount to making them truly useful for practical reference. Related statutory provisions must be grouped together in a logical and intuitive manner, clearly delineated by prominent headings and subordinate captions that empower users to swiftly locate specific information. Cross-references which link different sections or related statutes must be both scrupulously accurate and genuinely helpful in guiding the reader. Crucial definitions and fundamental legal principles necessitate strategic highlighting or positioning in locations where they can be effortlessly discovered. All these intricate requirements collectively demand not merely superior copying skills, but also sophisticated editorial judgment and a profound, empathetic understanding of how these documents will ultimately be practically utilized by their end users. The secure storage and diligent preservation of completed legal documents present a continuous series of complex challenges that extend far beyond the initial, laborious work of transcription. These invaluable documents must be assiduously protected from the destructive incursions of moisture, the ravages of insects, the gnawing damage inflicted by rodents, the catastrophic potential of fire, and the pervasive risk of human carelessness. Furthermore, they necessitate systematic organization in ways that facilitate the swift and efficient location of specific items when their consultation becomes necessary. They also mandate periodic inspection and ongoing maintenance to proactively identify any incipient signs of deterioration before they escalate into serious, irreversible damage. Most critically, these documents require cyclical recopying to generate fresh, pristine versions before the originals inevitably become too compromised or illegible to be reliably read. The profound societal significance of meticulously accurate legal records dictates that scribes of Lysander's caliber occupy positions imbued with considerable public trust and weighty responsibility. Citizens, astute merchants, and authoritative government officials alike depend absolutely on these legal documents for the robust protection of their inherent rights, for the equitable resolution of contentious disputes, and for indispensable guidance in navigating intricate and ambiguous situations. Errors, even seemingly minor ones, introduced during the process of legal copying, can have dire and far-reaching consequences, potentially invalidating crucial contracts, inadvertently creating unfair advantages for certain parties, or rendering it utterly impossible to definitively ascertain what the law actually mandates in specific, complex circumstances. The meticulously designed working environment of legal scribes serves as a palpable reflection of the paramount importance ascribed to their exacting labor. Lysander's dedicated copying chamber, for instance, is thoughtfully engineered to furnish optimal conditions conducive to detailed and precise work. It boasts ample, consistent lighting, maintains a comfortable and stable temperature, and offers robust protection from disruptive noise and incessant interruptions. The meticulously crafted furniture within is strategically arranged to promote proper ergonomic posture and to substantially reduce the physical strain inherent in prolonged, sedentary work. Writing surfaces are precisely positioned at the exact ideal height and angle to further alleviate physical stress. Sophisticated storage systems are implemented to keep all materials meticulously organized and readily accessible. In essence, every single element within this specialized workspace is thoughtfully arranged and calibrated to promote unwavering accuracy, maximize operational efficiency, and ensure the enduring preservation of these invaluable documents. Collaborative efforts with fellow scribes prove absolutely indispensable for tackling projects of monumental scale, such as the comprehensive compilation of entire legal codes or the creation of expansive administrative records. In such endeavors, various scribes might concurrently engage with distinct sections of the text, thereby necessitating scrupulous coordination to ensure an unwavering consistency in formatting conventions, specialized terminology, and intertextual cross-references across the entire work. Regular convocations among the scribes provide invaluable opportunities to collectively deliberate upon emerging problems, to share effective solutions, and to collectively uphold the exceptionally high standards that legal documents intrinsically demand. This collaborative methodology also intrinsically incorporates robust checks against individual errors, as multiple discerning individuals meticulously review each document prior to its definitive designation as complete and authoritative. The intricate intellectual challenges inherent in legal copying extend significantly beyond the simplistic act of mere transcription, encompassing sophisticated processes of nuanced interpretation, logical organization, and judicious editorial decision-making. Legal language, by its very nature, frequently incorporates highly technical terms, employs convoluted and complex sentence structures, and contains numerous cross-references to other documents or foundational legal principles. Scribes, therefore, must possess a sufficiently profound and nuanced understanding of these inherent complexities, enabling them to keenly recognize when a passage appears nonsensical, when cross-references are demonstrably incorrect, or when particular formatting choices might inadvertently create confusion for future users who will consult these vital documents. The comprehensive training of new scribes necessitates not merely the direct instruction in technical proficiencies, but critically, the profound inculcation of the specific attitudes and diligent work habits that legal transcription inexorably demands: an unwavering attention to minute detail, an enduring patience with highly repetitive tasks, an intrinsic professional pride derived from impeccable accuracy, and a holistic understanding of the broader societal importance of their meticulous work. All these essential qualities must be assiduously developed through extensive practical experience and expert mentorship. Master scribes, such as Lysander, embrace this profound training responsibility with utmost gravity, fully cognizant that the enduring quality and unimpeachable reliability of all future legal records hinge directly upon the thoroughness and excellence with which they prepare their designated successors. Beyond their immediate duties, these dedicated individuals meticulously prepare their successors, ensuring the uninterrupted flow of critical knowledge and the enduring legacy of their craft for future generations. This commitment to continuity underscores the profound societal reliance on their specialized expertise. The financial dimensions of scribal occupations vividly demonstrate the profound esteem society bestows upon meticulously accurate legal records. Professional scribes consistently secure commendable remuneration, enjoy stable employment prospects, and are accorded significant social standing. The sophisticated materials they employ, including premium quality parchment, enduring inks, and specialized implements, represent substantial communal outlays that communities willingly undertake, recognizing the paramount importance of possessing unimpeachable legal documentation. This robust economic underpinning liberates scribes to prioritize precision and exactitude over mere celerity, thereby generating documents destined to serve their communities reliably for countless generations. As twilight descends and Lysander meticulously finalizes another segment of the intricate legal code he has been painstakingly transcribing, he experiences a serene contentment, a profound satisfaction derived from labor that transcends immediate exigencies. The profound pronouncements he has diligently preserved this day are destined to inform judicial rulings, safeguard the fundamental entitlements of citizens, and uphold the delicate fabric of societal order long after his own name has faded from memory. His unwavering commitment to precision, his steadfast dedication to absolute accuracy, and his insightful comprehension of the expansive significance of codified law collectively buttress the very foundations upon which civilized society rests. With the advent of a new day, he will embark upon another section, perpetuating the ceaseless yet indispensable endeavor of imprinting human wisdom into an enduring, permanent form. What other diligent custodians of knowledge contributed to upholding the intellectual bedrock of ancient Greek civilization? In a parallel vein to how scribes such as Lysander safeguarded the statutes that governed ancient Greek society, the salt-gatherers of the Aegean Sea meticulously preserved the vital provisions that sustained its populace. Theodorus, a seasoned artisan, now steps into the tranquil, shallow lagoons fringing the coastline near Marathon, feeling the gentle caress of the sun-warmed brine against his legs as he commences yet another day's toil, extracting one of antiquity's most indispensable commodities. While salt may appear prosaic and utterly commonplace to the contemporary individual, in the distant past, it was quite literally valued on par with its weight in silver. It served as an indispensable agent for the preservation of foodstuffs, the meticulous curing of hides, and scores of other critical processes that rendered an organized, civilized existence truly viable. The intricate methodology of extracting salt from seawater demands not only profound patience, but also impeccable timing and an intimate, localized, ecological understanding, a mastery that typically accrues only after many years of dedicated practice. Theodorus, through years of diligent observation, has acquired the profound ability to discern the subtle indicators that signal optimal conditions for salt production. He comprehends the precise confluence of ambient temperature, atmospheric humidity, prevailing wind patterns, and the rhythmic ebb and flow of tidal cycles that collectively forge the perfect milieu for natural evaporation. An overabundance of rainfall would inevitably dilute the precious brine, diminishing its efficacy. Insufficient solar exposure would decelerate the crucial evaporative process. Conversely, excessive winds could prematurely disperse the nascent, precious crystals before they could be properly collected. The extensive salt flats where Theodorus dedicates his labor are not merely natural geological features. Rather, they are intricately engineered systems comprising shallow, interconnected ponds and channels, meticulously maintained over countless generations by successive salt gatherers. Each individual pond is calibrated with exacting precision to guarantee a uniform water depth, featuring clay-lined beds that effectively thwart any seepage and incorporating sophisticated wooden sluice gates that precisely regulate the water flow between distinct sections of the complex. The feeder channels, which convey fresh seawater into this elaborate system, undergo regular and thorough cleansing to prevent any obstruction by intrusive sand, drifting seaweed, or various detritus that tempestuous storms might sweep in from deeper oceanic expanses. The nascent hours of morning represent the most propitious period for inspecting the salt ponds. When the ambient air remains cool and the evaporative processes of the preceding night have sufficiently concentrated the brine to its ideal potency, Theodorus navigates deliberately through the shallow waters. He employs a lengthy wooden rake, gently probing the bed of each pond for the distinctive telltale granular crunch that signifies the crystallization of salt on the clay surface. This auditory cue is uniquely identifiable, entirely distinct from the soft, yielding squelch of mud or the abrasive scrape of shells and stones. Upon discovering a pond deemed ready for harvest, he precisely marks its position with a small wooden stake, ensuring he can return later with the appropriate specialized implements. The actual harvesting of salt transcends mere manual exertion. It is an endeavor demanding considerable artistry and discerning judgment. The delicate crystals must be gathered at the precise, opportune juncture. If collected prematurely, they remain too minute and are often commingled with undesirable impurities. If deferred too long, they risk redissolving back into the concentrated brine. Theodorus skillfully wields a specialized implement, ingeniously designed as a hybrid of a rake and a scoop, featuring closely spaced wooden tines that permit the efficient drainage of water while securely retaining the precious salt crystals. Each careful scoop must be executed with utmost precision to avoid disturbing the underlying sediment on the pond's floor, which would inevitably adulterate the pristine white salt with undesirable mud and organic detritus. The harvested salt is carefully transferred into intricately woven baskets, which are then lined with a fine cloth. This ingenious design permits the gradual drainage of any residual brine while securely containing the delicate crystals. These laden baskets are subsequently positioned upon elevated wooden platforms, ensuring they remain above the water level, allowing the immutable force of gravity to perform the majority of the crucial work in separating the liquid from the solid. This methodical process cannot, under any circumstances, be expedited. Any attempt to forcibly squeeze or press the salt to hasten water removal would inevitably pulverize the crystalline structure and significantly diminish the overall quality of the final commodity. Instead, Theodorus meticulously arranges the baskets in a carefully conceived pattern, optimizing both air circulation and efficient drainage. Rigorous quality control constitutes an indispensable component of successful salt production, primarily because varying grades of salt fulfill distinct purposes and consequently command disparate market prices. The most exquisite, pristine white crystals, entirely devoid of any discoloration or extraneous material, are conscientiously set aside for the critical tasks of food preservation and culinary seasoning. These premium crystals are destined for discerning, affluent households, professional chefs, and astute merchants who engage in the lucrative trade of luxury provisions. Lesser grades, which may contain traces of sand or organic matter, are nonetheless perfectly suitable for the less fastidious applications such as curing leather, dyeing textiles, or other industrial processes where absolute purity is less paramount than sheer volume. The intricate enterprise of salt gathering necessitates a meticulous comprehension of prevailing market conditions and the cultivation of robust customer relationships, aspects that extend considerably beyond the purely physical exertions of harvesting. Theodorus assiduously maintains vital connections with merchants who facilitate the transportation of salt to distant inland urban centers, food preservers who depend on consistent and reliable supplies for their operations, and wealthy households that consistently value the unwavering quality of his product. These enduring relationships are painstakingly forged over numerous years of dependable delivery, forthright commercial dealings, and an unblemished reputation for consistently producing salt that precisely fulfills the specific requirements of each individual client. Inclement weather perpetually introduces formidable obstacles, demanding both agile adaptability and astute long-term strategic planning. A protracted period of heavy rainfall, spanning a week, possesses the potential to utterly devastate an entire developing batch of salt, compelling the gatherer to completely drain the affected ponds and recommence the entire arduous process with a fresh infusion of seawater. Violent storms can inflict considerable damage upon the meticulously maintained pond infrastructure, necessitating immediate and diligent repairs to avert the disastrous loss of concentrated brine, which represents the culmination of weeks of patient labor. Extended intervals of overcast skies significantly impede the rate of evaporation, thereby creating a considerable backlog of partially developed salt that requires careful management to prevent spoilage and ensure its viability. The inherent seasonal rhythms governing salt production dictate that the preponderance of the year's harvest must be accomplished during the arid summer months, a period characterized by the highest rates of evaporation and minimal precipitation. This temporal constraint engenders intense periods of frenetic activity, which are subsequently succeeded by quieter interims when attention shifts decisively towards essential maintenance, structural repairs, and comprehensive preparations for the forthcoming season. During the colder winter months, Theodorus diligently repairs and enhances his intricate pond systems, shrewdly negotiates contractual agreements with his clientele for the ensuing year, and meticulously processes the accumulated salt from the preceding summer harvests into various distinct grades and packaging configurations. The specialized implements and sophisticated equipment employed in the exacting task of salt gathering are unique articles that demand the same meticulous care and attention bestowed upon the salt ponds themselves. Wooden tools, for instance, are conscientiously treated with protective oils that effectively inhibit decay without introducing any contaminants to the precious salt. Metal components are vigilantly safeguarded against the corrosive effects of rust, which would inevitably discolor the final product. Similarly, baskets are diligently repaired or promptly replaced before any wear might create apertures that would allow the valuable salt to escape. Even the delicate cloth linings must be chosen with discerning judgment and maintained with utmost care. Different weaves inherently offer varying drainage rates, and certain dyes or treatments, seemingly innocuous, possess the potential to subtly alter the taste or aesthetic presentation of the salt. The comprehensive body of knowledge requisite for successful salt production encompasses a sophisticated understanding of chemistry, meteorology, and civil engineering, a mastery that rivals any other ancient artisanal craft. Salt gatherers must possess an acute awareness of how diverse dissolved minerals crystallize at particular concentrations, how atmospheric pressure exerts an influence on evaporation rates, and critically, how to meticulously design and maintain complex hydraulic networks that precisely regulate water flow across multiple interconnected ponds. This invaluable knowledge is characteristically transmitted through established familial lines or via rigorous apprenticeship systems, thereby ensuring the enduring preservation of both practical methodologies and profound theoretical insights. The financial dimensions of the salt trade vividly underscore the indispensable character of this commodity within ancient society. Salt gathering consistently yields a reliable and steady income throughout the productive season, often presenting lucrative opportunities for commanding premium prices whenever supply is constrained by adverse weather conditions or other unforeseen factors. While the undertaking necessitates a considerable initial capital outlay for pond construction and specialized equipment, these expenditures are typically recouped over many years of sustained production. Crucially, the demand for salt remains unceasing and eminently predictable. It is a universal necessity, and for the vast majority of its applications, there exist no viable or effective substitutes. While numerous alternatives have emerged for a majority of its applications, the fundamental role of salt often remains distinct and irreplaceable in essential processes, solidifying its enduring significance. Rivalry within the community of salt harvesters effectively spurs ingenuity and elevates product standards, while simultaneously cultivating collaborative bonds indispensable for the exchange of expertise and communal assets. Adjacent cultivators may indeed vie for the most discerning clientele and optimal remuneration, yet they concurrently disseminate intelligence concerning atmospheric phenomena, prevailing economic climates, and advancements in methodology, proving advantageous for all participants in the sector. In times of unforeseen crises, such as catastrophic meteorological events or mechanical breakdowns, these competitors frequently transform into allies, extending the loan of implements, offering communal operational areas, or supplying provisional manpower to assist one another in sustaining operational output and mitigating widespread disruption. The societal standing of salt gatherers mirrors the critical nature of their product, simultaneously recognizing the arduous physical requirements and precarious financial realities inherent in their profession. They are revered as accomplished artisans who furnish indispensable provisions, yet they are neither affluent nor exceptionally potent within the wider governmental or artistic spheres. Their interpersonal relationships predominantly exist among individuals deeply entrenched in the domains of sustenance creation and preservation, agriculturalists, boulangers, traders, and domestic managers who collectively comprehend the tangible necessity of consistent availability of superior saline products for daily life and long-term well-being. With the gradual advance of the afternoon and the solar orb attaining its zenith of brilliance, Theodorus concludes his early day inspections and commences the meticulous undertaking of conveying the gathered saline bounty to designated repositories, where it will undergo further desiccation prior to commercial encapsulation. These warm, crystalline formations scintillate akin to minute gemstones in the resplendent solar illumination, every individual fragment embodying protracted periods of diligent effort and scrupulous observance of elemental mechanisms that have functioned identically through innumerable epochs. His unwavering, systematic engagement with this venerable profession not only contributes significantly to the preservation of foodstuffs vital for the sustenance of his populace, but also ensures the perpetuation of ancestral customs that forge a profound bond between him and a lineage of salt harvesters who have toiled upon these identical literal expanses for countless generations. This rhetorical inquiry prompts contemplation. Beyond the vital role of salt harvesting, what other fundamental vocations were instrumental in enabling the inhabitants of ancient Greece to transmute raw environmental assets into the foundational elements that underpinned the very possibility of an organized, civilized existence? In stark contrast to the salt harvesters, such as Theodorus, whose daily lives harmonized with the ebb and flow of maritime and littoral cadences, the pastoralists of Arcadia ordered their existence according to the more deliberate, profound pulsations of the alpine terrain and verdant grazing lands. Aristomos, a seasoned shepherd, conducts his charges along venerable trails that meander through venerable stands of oak and traverse open fields adorned with a profusion of wild blossoms, adhering to itineraries meticulously trodden by innumerable preceding generations of pastoral custodians. The majestic Arcadian peaks ascend in graceful, undulating formations towards the azure expanse, their verdant inclines cloaked with a specific variety of herbage and botanical growth, which, renowned throughout the Hellenic lands, yield the most delectable lacteal secretions and the preeminent quality of fleece. The pastoral occupation within these formidable mountains necessitates a profound, intrinsic understanding of the terrain, extending considerably beyond a mere awareness of where forage flourishes. Aristomos possesses the sagacity to interpret meteorological conditions by discerning the subtle patterns of cloud accumulation around specific summits, to forecast the presence of vital hydration sources based on the chromatic variations of flora within remote depressions, and to pinpoint secure havens capable of safeguarding his charges from abrupt atmospheric disturbances or predatory incursions. This invaluable corpus of wisdom has been transmitted across his familial lineage for countless generations, meticulously honed through empirical encounters and meticulous scrutiny, culminating in an all-encompassing comprehension of how to collaborate harmoniously with ecological frameworks, rather than contending antagonistically against them. The ovine members of the flock are, by their very nature, far removed from the stereotypical image of plump, tractable livestock found on contemporary agricultural estates. Instead, they are robust, discerning beings meticulously acclimated to the rigors of an alpine existence. These animals have acquired the faculty to respond to Aristomos's nuanced directives. A distinctive sibilant sound signifying an assent, a specific manual articulation instructing cohesion, or an alteration in perambulation velocity that portends imminent peril. The profound bond between the pastoral guardian and his charges is predicated upon reciprocal comprehension and unwavering confidence, forged through extensive periods of collective endurance within arduous surroundings, wherein collaborative effort stands as an indispensable prerequisite for persistence and mutual survival. Every cycle of the year introduces distinct vicissitudes and advantageous circumstances, demanding meticulous forethought and adaptable reactions from the shepherd. The advent of spring necessitates guiding the ovine contingent towards elevated grazing lands as the wintry precipitation recedes and fresh verdure emerges. Yet it concurrently involves traversing treacherous mire-laden paths, fording engorged watercourses, and managing the lambing period, during which the female sheep require heightened vigilance and safeguarding. The summer months present the most luxuriant pasturage, though they simultaneously introduce the specter of aridity, scorching temperatures, and the heightened activity of predatory fauna, which thrive amidst plentiful sustenance. Autumn mandates comprehensive preparation for the impending winter, achieved by bolstering the flock's physical state whilst progressively relocating them to more subdued, protected foraging grounds. The quotidian rhythm of pastoral care adheres to established modalities that are simultaneously discernible and infinitely mutable. The dawn hours are dedicated to inspecting every individual animal for indications of infirmity or physical harm, conducting a precise tally of the entire flock to verify that no member has strayed during the nocturnal period, and meticulously evaluating meteorological circumstances to strategize the day's migratory trajectory. The collective of sheep progresses deliberately across the terrain, punctuating their journey with regular intervals for foraging, hydration, and repose. The meridian hours usher in the most intense thermal conditions, prompting the sheep to seek the sanctuary of shadows, and Aristomos capitalizes on this tranquil interlude for essential duties such as mending gear, verifying the contents of provision stores, or reconnoitering potential pathways for the subsequent day's expedition. Traversing the rugged mountain topography necessitates a unique amalgamation of proficiencies that intricately weave together empirical expertise with an innate grasp of both animal instincts and ecological mechanisms. Aristomos interprets the contours of the land with the precision of a cartographer, meticulously observing prominent geographical features, cyclical environmental shifts, and nuanced indicators which collectively point towards the most advantageous itineraries under varying circumstances. He possesses an inherent awareness of which thoroughfares render themselves impassable following significant precipitation, which zones are susceptible to geological instability and landslides, and precisely which pastoral expanses offer the most abundant forage during distinct periods of the annual cycle. This intricate cognitive cartography undergoes continuous refinement, informed by fresh observations and the dynamic evolution of environmental parameters. The apparatus employed in the arduous pursuit of alpine pastoralism is scrupulously chosen for its resilience, practical utility, and ease of conveyance. Aristomos wields a formidable staff, which fulfills an array of functions, serving as an ambulatory support, an implement for directing his flock, a defensive arm against encroaching predators, and an instrument for gauging the profundity of watercourses or snowdrifts. His protective outer garment, meticulously woven from indigenous wool, affords insulation even when damp, alongside safeguarding from the biting wind and intense solar radiation. Vessels for hydration, provisions for sustenance, and components for mending are all judiciously selected on the basis of their efficiency in terms of mass versus practical application, coupled with their inherent capacity to endure rigorous treatment within challenging environments. The effective oversight of predatory animals demands unceasing watchfulness and a multifaceted repertoire of tactical approaches, which meticulously harmonize the safeguarding of the ovine contingent with a profound reverence for the intrinsic balance of the natural environment. Canine predators such as wolves, ursine species, and formidable felines collectively present significant potential hazards, yet equally more diminutive carnivores, including vulpine species, represent a menace, particularly to vulnerable young lambs or ailing creatures. Aristomos deploys specialized canine guardians, rigorously trained for the exigencies of alpine operations. However, he concurrently implements methodologies such as the judicious placement of the flock, the precise scheduling of transits through exposed territories, and the construction of ephemeral impediments utilizing either inherent topographical elements or readily transportable components. The communal dimensions of pastoralism encompass the cultivation and sustainment of interconnections among fellow stockkeepers, indigenous settlements, and the expansive web of individuals engaged in the industries of fleece and lacteal output. Pastoralists routinely exchange intelligence pertaining to forage availability, meteorological trends, the presence of predatory fauna, and prevailing commercial valuations via unformalized conduits that permeate the entirety of the geographical expanse. They meticulously synchronize their transits to prevent the excessive depletion of specific grazing grounds and offer reciprocal assistance during periods of crisis or arduous circumstances. Such crucial affiliations are nurtured through periodic convocations at time-honored assembly points, celebratory seasonal observances, and the ingrained practice of hospitality that shepherds customarily proffer to wayfarers traversing isolated locales. The judicious oversight of animal propagation necessitates extensive temporal foresight and meticulous archival practices, thereby guaranteeing the vitality and fecundity of the ovine collective over successive lineages. Aristomos diligently traces genetic ancestries, scrutinizes the efficacy of reproductive endeavors, and renders critical judgments regarding which individuals to retain, which to commercialize, and which to exchange with fellow pastoralists for the introduction of novel genetic contributions. These pivotal determinations are grounded in considerations such as the caliber of fleece, the volume of lacteal yield, inherent immunity to ailments, and the capacity for adaptation to challenging alpine environments, qualities which frequently do not manifest unequivocally until the animals attain full physiological development. Cyclical celebrations and sacred rites afford invaluable occasions for pastoralists to congregate, disseminate intelligence, and uphold ancestral customs, thereby linking them intrinsically to their chronological and ethereal legacy. The veneration of Pan, the revered deity with caprine limbs, patron of herders and untamed realms, encompasses ceremonial practices that formally recognize humanity's reliance upon ecological frameworks and the profound stewardship inherent in tending domesticated creatures within untamed landscapes. Such solemn proceedings serve to fortify the moral underpinnings of pastoral care and furnish essential spiritual sustenance for confronting the inherent solitude and formidable adversities endemic to an existence in the high country. The financial dimensions of pastoral activity encompass a multiplicity of revenue channels, each demanding distinct categories of expertise and acute commercial acumen. The commercialization of fleece is contingent upon its inherent excellence, opportune moment, and established rapport with intermediaries who transform unrefined wool into marketable commodities. Lacteal offerings, such as artisanal cheeses and fresh milk, necessitate a comprehensive grasp of alimentary conservation techniques, logistical transit methodologies, and prevailing consumer predilections. The sale of live animals entails a meticulous assessment of genetic lineage for breeding, the inherent attributes of the meat, and the fluctuating market exigencies that exhibit seasonal and geographical variations. To achieve prosperity, adept pastoralists are compelled to possess a thorough comprehension of each of these distinct marketplaces and to formulate their operational strategies in a correspondingly judicious manner. A profound aptitude for weather observation and the ability to react effectively are indispensable proficiencies, often distinguishing between prosperity and ruin. Within the demanding realm of mountain shepherding, Aristomos has cultivated an extraordinary talent for discerning inconspicuous indicators that foreshadow shifts in atmospheric conditions. He meticulously studies the nuanced comportment of indigenous fauna, the distinct formations of particular clouds, and the precise trajectory and force of air currents that transport humidity from distant oceanic expanses. This profound understanding empowers him to deftly relocate his entire flock to secure locations well in advance of impending tempests, to locate adequate refuge during periods of severe meteorological events, and to judiciously exploit propitious environmental circumstances for crucial operations, such as the shearing of wool or the strategic breeding of animals. The comprehensive education of nascent shepherds transcends the mere impartation of practical proficiencies. It fundamentally encompasses the cultivation of essential dispositions and inherent personal attributes that are prerequisites for navigating the rigors of an existence in the highlands. Virtues such as unwavering patience, profound self-sufficiency, meticulous observational acumen, and a deep reverence for ecological frameworks are not simply taught, but must be painstakingly forged through direct experiential learning and sagacious guidance from seasoned mentors. Concomitantly, robust physical conditioning, formidable psychological fortitude, and the capacity for sound judgment when confronted with exigencies are of paramount importance. Eminent pastoralists, exemplified by Aristomos, embrace this pedagogical duty with utmost gravity, recognizing that the ancestral customs and invaluable wisdom they transmit will irrevocably shape the prosperity and endurance of subsequent generations. The judicious preservation and enduring utilization of alpine grazing lands necessitate an intricate comprehension of ecological tenets, a wisdom that contemporary environmental advocates are only now commencing to fully grasp. Through a legacy spanning millennia, pastoralists have amassed an unparalleled repository of empirical knowledge, instructing them on the optimal methods to regulate grazing intensity, to actively counteract soil degradation, to meticulously sustain a rich tapestry of botanical species, and to harmoniously collaborate with the inherent dynamics of natural successional processes, thereby ensuring the sustained fertility of these pastures across countless epochs. Their time-honored methodologies encompass a range of sophisticated interventions, including judiciously managed burning to rejuvenate growth, the precise temporal orchestration of livestock pasturing, and the vigilant safeguarding of delicate ecosystems during precarious intervals, such as protracted droughts or severe meteorological disturbances. Beyond its practical exigencies, the vocation of shepherding encompasses profound philosophical dimensions, inviting deep contemplation on the intricate rapport between humankind and the natural world, the intrinsic significance of responsible custodianship, and the ethical principles that ought to govern human engagement with all sentient creatures. The profound tranquility and breathtaking grandeur inherent in mountainous terrains afford unparalleled occasions for introspective thought, a luxury seldom found in more densely inhabited regions. Consequently, numerous pastoralists cultivate an acute reverence for the elaborate intricacy and mutual reliance characteristic of ecological systems, concurrently fostering a genuine sense of humility concerning humanity's modest yet integral position within the expansive, interconnected fabric of existence. With the gradual descent of dusk, as Aristomos expertly directs his charges towards a secluded, verdant pasture designated for their nocturnal repose, a profound sense of contentment pervades him. This gratification stems from yet another day successfully dedicated to diligent custodianship within an ecosystem renowned for both its unparalleled splendor and its formidable rigors. The ovine companions, in turn, gracefully transition into their customary twilight rituals, placidly foraging, engaging in communal interactions, and progressively readying themselves for slumber. Concurrently, their vigilant guardian erects his unassuming bivouac, making ready for a night of vigilant repose beneath a celestial canopy, where the constellations blaze with an exceptional luminosity in the crisp, unblemished mountain atmosphere. His unwavering, adept guardianship of these creatures not only furnishes sustenance to the human settlements nestled in the lower valleys, but also perpetuates venerable customs that forge an unbroken lineage between him and countless antecedents who discovered profound significance and compelling direction in this arduous yet deeply fulfilling existence. The subdued murmurs of the settling flock, the ethereal calls of nocturnal avifauna, and the whispering breeze rustling through the arboreal canopy collectively weave an age-old serenade. This melodic tapestry has resonated through these majestic peaks for millennia, imparting a pervasive sense of tranquility and an appreciation for the eternal cadences that arise from a life lived in symbiotic accord with the inherent order of the natural realm. The tangible environment, often referred to as the actual world, encompasses the immediate and unmediated experiences that define human existence. It represents the physical domain where phenomena unfold independently of digital constructs or abstract thought, a realm characterized by its inherent immediacy and unyielding factual consistency. This foundational setting, replete with its complex interplay of natural forces, societal structures, and individual interactions, forms the bedrock upon which all other perceived or imagined realities are ultimately built and measured. It is the inescapable stage where life's grand drama truly commences, influencing every decision, shaping every outcome, and providing the raw material for all intellectual and emotional engagement.